5:33. Thank you everybody for showing up. I like this whole sitting in the center thing. It makes it look very full, very busy, very nice. So before we go into section 1, attendance and confirmation of quorum, I just want to let you guys know how this one's going to go down. We have a very full agenda, and so in order to get done in time, we're going to abide by Robert's rules and meeting rules very strictly. So what that's going to look like is for each discussion item, so basically for each section, you kind of have, section B, C, D, E, etc. Under that, in the discussion section, which is section O, we have 6 items. For each of those 6 items, each board and exec member will be allowed to speak twice on each item for a maximum of 2 minutes at a time. And we are going to have a speakers list. So if you're not on that speakers list, you will not be able to speak. And eventually, I think the number is something like 5 or 6 speakers. Once I've gone, you're not able to then kind of jump on the speakers list if you're not already, but we'll come to that and cross that bridge when we come to it. Is there any questions on that? No? And moving on, it would appear we have quorum. Yes, Phoebe.
About the motion we discussed earlier, should I make it now?
What we'll do is when we do the adoption of the agenda, which was not done yet, so section 2, amendments to and approval of the agenda, that's when you can make a motion.
Okay.
Cool. So we do have attendance, and we have attendance from all board of directors members, it looks like, except a couple.
Can we just go through who's
yes, we can. So we have present from the board of directors. We have president, we have senator, we have 1 of 2 AMS reps. Thank you, Simran, for being here. We have our 2, yes.
Can I ask, is there a proxy assigned for
There is no proxy assigned for the other AMS rep. Thank you to AJ, 4th year rep, for being here. Thank you to Matt for assigning Sapnel as his proxy. Thank you to both 3rd year reps for being in attendance. Thank you to both 2nd year reps for being in attendance. Thank you to both 1st year reps for being in attendance. This should be one of the more exciting board meetings you guys will be to, so yay. To our ever-present, ever-vigilant ombudsperson. And then thank you to all exec council members who decided to show up. Okay, amendments to and approval of the agenda. Phoebe.
I'd like to make a motion for this meeting to be adjourned when we get to guns.
Which
would
is?
Be 11. Yeah, just in case we hit that point. Praying we don't, but if we do, I'd just like to make sure that much.
So all members have heard the motion. Is there any questions, any comments? Can I get a mover for the motion? Phoebe? Can I get a seconder? Thank you. Daph?
I don't think I can read the motion.
No, if you say the motion, you move it.
Well, then can my board member motion? Oh, yeah.
Oh, sorry, yeah, sorry, that's right, Phoebe's exact, sorry. Yes, so moved by Angela, I saw it, seconded by Daphne, thank you. All those in favor of the motion to end the meeting at 11? I actually need to see a vote, guys. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Are there any other amendments to the agenda? Yes, Daphne.
Just a discussion of president advisory board.
So we'll move that into the discussion section?
Yes.
7th item to the discussion section.
I love it.
So you've heard the motion. Can we get a mover for said motion? You're not a voting member of the board, though, right? You are? There we go. Appendicitis, guys, they can't think straight. Yes. So you've heard mover, Daphne, seconder. Thank you, Jacob. All those in favor of the motion? Any opposed? Any abstentions? The motion carries. Any other amendments to the agenda? No, if not, can I get a mover to accept the agenda as adopted? Thank you, Jacob. Seconder, thank you, Angela. All those in favor of accepting the agenda as adopted? Any opposed? Any abstention? Motion carries. Membership, introductions, new members. No vacancies. Is this our first board meeting since we've had our new? No, it isn't.
No, it's not. It's
October. We're good then.
Would we like to make an introduction?
Yes. Would you like to briefly introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is William Chef. I am a moderator UBC, and I'm presenting here today on a presentation that is for some reason called Alternative Media at UBC, an overview of our UBC and UBC professions, which, because I assume there are time constraints, I've cut out a couple of the other media sources, so I'm going to focus on the two most relevant.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you. We look forward to your presentation. I will close. Well, yes, if you would like to do a very brief introduction, sub 15 seconds.
Just name and position.
Just name and position. So I am Michael. I'm the chairperson of the board and student senator.
Chris, VP Student Engagement.
Daphne, president. Ellie, admin.
Marissa for Sierra.
Evan, VP Muffin.
Angela Secretary.
Maddie, ombudsperson.
Phoebe, VP.
Victor, third year.
Sanjay goes to something big.
AJ, fourth year rep.
Simran, AMS rep.
Jacob, third year rep.
Rowan, second year rep.
Cool. So-
Thank you. All right. Hopefully that's good.
You want me to present that?
We're coming up to it very quickly. So chair's remarks. Sorry the meeting is at this time and at this date. I know that's not ideal. I apologize for my body trying to kill me. That's it. Hopefully this meeting goes a little smooth. All right. Presentations to the board of directors. First up, we have Mr. William Chen from Reddit. The floor is yours.
What's the time allocation for this presentation?
We'll give, we have, let's say 15 minutes for the presentation,
Probably
5 minutes for questions. Perfect. I like to hear that.
So my name is William Chen. The vast majority of you guys won't know me. My pseudonym is Kinost, which probably won't ring the bell for the vast majority of people. But either way, I'm here at UBC particularly, and I do a lot of research, particularly on online engagement, civil society, and community engagement in general. I've worked for the federal government. I was president of the Womb Foundation of Canada. I have a membership in like Wikimedia Commons Internet Society. The point I'm trying to make is I'm really focused on research and the kind of engagement that we bring to our community and to the broader community as a whole. So today I'm primarily going to talk about our UBC and UBC professions. But first I want to touch upon traditional media. So the UBC is a traditional student newspaper. You guys have all heard of it. It's run by a nonprofit organization that the vast majority of you guys will be a part of because you pay a $5 fee to it every year. It has huge amounts of editorial independence. And in particularity, it isn't really accountable to anyone but students as a whole. Inside the board, they don't have a lot of control over the editorial side of things. And they're the best known outside of UBC, especially because they're a member of numerous university presses. They've been a very instrumental kind of leader in bringing upon the idea of independent student media in Canada. And their content is editor, curated, volunteer, contributed. Now, our UBC is a community that many of you might be familiar with, not necessarily in the most positive context of things. Our UBC is a community on reddit.com, which is a very large kind of discussion board. It has 11,000 subscribers, a little bit over that, I think 11,300. It is a community kind of curated content because members of our community upvote and downvote things according to their relevancy and how much they appreciate the content. And it's contributed by users themselves. Any of you can make a Reddit account, and you can particularly have an impact on how our community is shaped to provoke thoughtful discussions. These are things that we'd like to see in our community. And this is just a quick snapshot of what Reddit looks like. Things we've had in the past that have made our community quite prominent include Ask Me Anything sessions, which are basically Q&A sessions. We've had them with Santa Ono, Alan Ehrenholtz, Mark T. McLean. This one is going to be a little bit more, he's the best professor ever. Actually, you guys probably haven't had him, but maybe for 104, he teaches 104.
I have.
Is it the one from Oxford?
Is he? I don't know. All I know is that he's
really nice.
he's nice, he's kick-ass. You know, he writes children's books for Aboriginal kids on math.
He's really active on the arts.
He's really active. We love him. He's by far our most, like, he's our favoritist. I know that's not a word, but like, in order to stress that. Either way, moving on. We have lots of like relevant discussions about what happens on campus. We have insightful questions, and occasionally we have memes, which I'll bring up later on because I feel like this is probably the one that you guys are really going to want to get in on. Where did I put my glasses? Never mind.
The glass case.
No, it's over here. So UBC Confessions has attracted a lot of notoriety on campus. You can argue that it is deserved. I personally don't necessarily think so. But it's the best known amongst UBC students. It has that kind of engaging, down-to-earth, insightful, well, I mean, I'd like to say generally insightful kind of content. It has huge amounts of student engagement because it relates to students in ways that the UBC and RUBC can with its very kind of like curated styles. It allows a kind of free forum for discussion, a free forum for bringing things out that you normally wouldn't express otherwise. So it's a curated media source, curated by admins. They particularly try and filter out what they feel are going to be the most provocative, and like provocative in the sense that it brings upon discussion and kind of engaging kind of materials. And its administrators are actually fairly neutral. They've been very open to taking criticism. They've been very open to having that kind of dialogue on campus that others we don't necessarily have every day. And that oftentimes means straying into like controversial areas like solder snakes or free speech or how we perceive gender roles in the 21st century. There are a lot of other sources in this presentation I'm not going to cover due to time constraints. So we have things like Her Campus, which is like a kind of magazine at UBC, an online magazine. Spoon University, we all know like the class of 20 Facebook groups. You guys all use it to advertise. CRTR is more of an artistic kind of community, both of Radio and Discorder. There's undergraduate constituency media, like whatever SUS has, and the AUS I think is having. No, this is embarrassing. I actually don't remember what it's called. And I'm in the AUS. And the Talon, which I feel is one of the, in the past, one of the more prominent media sources at UBC. So these are statistics we haven't necessarily released yet. UBC Confessions was very nice enough to provide this information to us. So as you can see from this, UBC Confessions by far and large has the biggest reach. Like its reach covers well outside of UBC's like population. Anyone who uses Facebook at UBC has seen like UBC Confessions. Like people from McGill, Waterloo. When I worked in Ottawa, people from Carleton and U Ottawa would like mention things from UBC Confessions and like mock UBC, not in like a mean-spirited kind of way. UBC Confessions, it has a huge amount of reach outside, and it has 136,000 page views, which is deflated. In actuality, like each page view could have like dozens of posts. Like it's just like each time someone goes to that page to read the post. Our UBC has 130,000 unique viewers a month, making it by far and large the largest homegrown community at UBC. It has 1.3 million page views, and that number actually, I believe, is out of date because it's gone up quite a bit. The UBC has 115,000 unique subscribers, which is a little bit under, with about half as many page views because there's less engagement involved with the UBC. And we don't really have any data on the Talon, Her Campus, or Spoon University that's reliable at this time. So recently we conducted a census to determine the demographics of the community, and this data hasn't been made public yet either because we're still going through it. But 86% of our UBC are current students. 8% of them are from the Sauder School of Business, which is a pretty substantial number. A lot of people have this preconceived notion that like computer science dominates our UBC. Not anymore, at least. I know in the past it used to be a very kind of homegrown community that was limited to engineering and computer science, but our largest kind of like constituencies are now in arts and general sciences. There's significant representation from each year standing, and our members are very engaged. But one of the most contentious points of our university, of our subreddit, is just our favorite Taylor Swift song. We have never been able to come to a consensus, and unfortunately, our community will collapse over this. So now I want to pose another question, a rhetorical one. Have alternative media replaced the UBC? And no, they absolutely have not, because the UBC focuses on factual reporting. They are very intertwined with our community, because a lot of the things that our users post ultimately turn into like UBC stories, and a lot of UBC stories are posted to our UBC where they provoke a lot of discussion, like with the AUS, like constituency scandals, and with Arvind Gupta. The UBC has a lot more money because you all, almost all of you pay a fee, and it has a lot more credibility doing so. And we don't have the same goals as the UBC. The UBC is really good at what it does, but it isn't something that we're trying to replicate. So why is it relevant then? It's a lot more engaging to students and the broader community at large because it relates to us as students. It has a significant reach, and there are far more accessible platforms for students to hear about current events, to express opinions, to advertise their events. These are platforms where anyone can come and reflect over their student experience. So how is this even relevant to the CUS? First and foremost, I want to bring to attention like student engagement at UBC. Our UBC is a very viable platform for advertising events. It has a huge reach, a huge audience, and we don't charge for advertisements at all as long as they're related to UBC. And this is better for like kind of general events that aren't necessarily just limited to commerce, but we'd also like to see the CUS create a permanent presence on our UBC, especially to like reach out to like first-year commerce students. We would really like it if the CUS maybe in the future ever host a Q&A session on our community. And we'd also like the CUS to, at least to some extent, maintain a presence to monitor pertinent feedback about CUS, about exclusion at UBC, about these various indices at UBC. And in terms of student politics, because I mean, guessing kind of because this is CUS, one of you will probably run for an AMS position in the future. Our UBC and UBC confessions, by far and large, have a tremendous impact at UBC and within AMS elections, especially AMS elections, because they're open to all. It used to be that if you had the endorsement of the Interfraternity Council and a couple big clubs, you were guaranteed to win. But that's no longer the case, with voter turnout being increased dramatically by AMS elections administrator Max Holmes last year. The reality is our UBC now is one of UBC's most critical voting blocks. And the reality is that our UBC affects more change than ever before within how we conduct ourselves, within how we conduct our community at UBC. In addition, we know for a fact that our UBC and UBC confessions is subject to active media monitoring programs at UBC. We know for a fact that numerous AMS politicians, numerous AMS staff, we believe that there are numerous officials at UBC that are constantly kept in loop, both in faculties like computer science and within the broader school administration itself that actively monitor like the UBC, RUBC, and UBC confessions. So now this is probably the flincher that you guys were all waiting for. Animosity towards Sauder. So there's a lot of controversy over where this meme came from, but I absolutely maintain that our UBC was not the source of it. I do believe that we had a role to play in it, but we, by far and large, I dispute Talissa Eng's allegations that our UBC was where this started. The first Sauder joke was posted about the Sauder building on December 18th that compared UBC to House Slytherin within Harry Potter. The first recent meme within our knowledge about Sauder related to like the idea of like Sauder students being snakes was the Sauder starter pack on December 21st, 2016. These memes didn't make any mention of snakes, but they may or may not have played a catalyst to what happened after. So the first direct mention of Sauder snakes was on January 16th. It was an origin, it was like a complaint about how being in Sauder was to a student. The first actual like Sauder snake meme, like that was the triggering factor that led to numerous other, like this is an influential, monumental part of what happened. It was a post about how one person was proud to be a snake on January 18th. And then we entered into a critical meme period. I coined that term myself. So
critical meme theory.
yeah, critical meme theory was actually a proposed student-directed seminar that I was hoping to conduct. So on January 21st, we experienced a huge surge. What's the correct word for this? Surge. Thank you. Huge surge of solder snake memes. And at one point or another, it was getting to be a bit repetitive and annoying. So moderation started removing solder snake memes. But we had that kind of period where the solder snake meme finally catalyzed and brought itself to an even larger reach than it had before. So the takeaways from this I want to put forward before we go into a discussion period. And I'm going to be here as long as you'd like to discuss this. RUBC and RUBC confessions, whether or not we consider the kind of things that happen on it, sometimes we don't entirely respect the amount of kind of draw that our community has. RUBC and UBC confessions. They are communities that were once underestimated in their ability to radically change how UBC operates, to radically change how UBC community views each other. And RUBC and UBC confessions are free forms for the proliferation of UBC culture, good or bad. These RUBC and UBC confessions, I don't think you can blame entirely for the solder snake memes, because at the end of the day, these were perpetuated by people who wanted to call solder students snakes. So at this point, this is, I think, the last slide, one of the last slides. Well, actually, the last slide with any content on it is I'd like to have a brief discussion about what we do at RUBC to alleviate any concerns about the animosity towards solder, to discuss more broadly the matter of moderation. But keep in mind that I'm a single moderator. I'm doing this out of my own accord. I can't actually force, we make these decisions as a team. And we make these decisions with the broader community, including the CUS.
All right.
Just briefly before we go on, I just wanted to say thank you to the UBC Confessions admins. They're very nice people.
So we have about 10 minutes for questions, and then because we have, I believe,
that's no worries. I think there's a PVCC.
Yeah. So we don't have actually anything about the Reddit in our discussion section.
Mm-hmm.
So if you guys would like to take the next 15 minutes now, just to ask any questions and have any discussion that you guys want, feel free to take a seat with me. You don't have to be up here the whole time.
Oh no,
but if you want to stay, by all means.
It could be either way.
So yeah, any questions or comments, guys? Angela, would you mind keeping a speakers list, just because I'm just looking at the phone, just making sure when I get a call back. Yeah, so if you guys want to speak, just, no, you didn't even have to write it down, just keep a mental tally of who raises their hand. So I see Daphne, I see Sapnel, I see Victor. So Daphne, Sapnel, Victor for now. Now you got this as well? Oh, best. Okay, go ahead. Daphne.
Yeah, so, William, my first time meeting you, but
We have?
yeah, we have.
Oh.
But I think my handle is not no.
It's all right. I know I can spot at least 3 of you that see difference. I know. So
Anyway.
I keep a pretty close eye on all that.
Okay. Yeah, I just want to say thank you for such an insightful and good presentation on all the information, especially on our relevant the snake meme in particular. I guess one of my first questions is just operational, in the sense of, would you be able to send us your slides so that we can, or are you keeping them?
I have planned to send redacted slides for now without the statistics. Well,
Oh,
I will probably need to double check with UBC professionals if they're okay with it.
okay. Got it. We also live stream this.
Yeah, no, that's not something.
I was just
Or does he know?
Yeah.
I didn't read out all the statistics.
Okay. And then I guess like your ask was like for us to be more involved. I know that you have gone to other undergraduate societies too, and what was their feedback?
Well, the CUS kind of case is very unique. We've had positive responses from the AUS and LFSUS. We have planned presentations from graduate societies. The LFSUS was really rushed, not because of any like bad reason. Like we were all struggling with in terms of time, and we just wanted to get in it now. The AUS has particularly decided to send this to the communications committee to discuss further options. One of the takeaways I had was not just from the undergraduate constituencies, but also for student politics in the future.
Okay, got it. That's really helpful. And I do agree with a lot of things that you said that these confessions and RUBC is like kind of a belief shaping the culture. Yeah, I think Satna was next on the list.
Yeah.
You have to speak up.
We hear me?
Yeah.
Okay.
He's
Okay, never mind.
Yeah, I really liked your slides. Good job. Really good data on this. But then I had a question. So you said that UBC is a very open platform where people post anything. But I was wondering, like, have you as a moderator have to take out certain posts because of severity or like really put certain people or organization on that? Has there been any such kind of moderation?
Like specifically about CUS or?
In general, like, is that possible or is it something that we should not do here? That it's
We do remove we have like content standards in place. We first and foremost have the most grounding rules. We remove without a doubt any personal and anything that can incite witch hunting. Like if I see someone named, and I think what's going to happen is that people are going to like actively try to hunt them down to send harassing messages, I will without a doubt even like automatically remove those. I will remove personal emails that shouldn't be shared. Reddit is extremely proactive. We've actually had an incident in the past where someone posted like a work email for co-op, and it ended up in like a bunch of people getting that. So we are extremely proactive about personal information. Now, on a more broader scale, like regarding like things like memes, we particularly remove them for being low quality or very repetitive. But we have, okay, like I don't want to like sound like a meme connoisseur or something. I'm trying to word this as best as I can, but either way, we don't necessarily remove things just because they portray a certain thing in a negative light. But we do have like a reasonable expectation that they're not going to like cause discord. The challenge of moderating RUBC is that Reddit as a whole is a very open kind of community. And actually, you know what? Like the fact that there aren't solder snake memes on RUBC like nonstop every day has nothing to do with like moderation. It has to do with the fact that the community as a whole tends to be fairly like proactive in downloading these kinds of things, that they tend to be fairly not very receptive to things that are not very polite. Our community is very well mannered as a whole. We treat each other with respect. And that's something that I've always held in really high regard of my particular. We are not rude people. I want to use more funny words, but I'm trying to be as professional as I can.
You don't have to be. Okay, we're just
Yeah.
and we're just happy with
They're big meanie heads. And meanie heads aren't allowed in this community.
Victoria, you're next.
Oh yeah, I was just wondering how like moderating goes like for both of them. Like, I guess I don't see it where I guess the comments would get to a problem. Like let's say if people start like I don't know, like extreme case like start like, dropping out or committing suicide or something just because of these posts. Would you like kind of step in that?
Sorry, I'm a little confused.
Like if the post like got so bad that you know a whole bunch of bad consequences did end up happening. Like, would you step in that kind of scenario?
You think you could give like an example?
Like let's say like I don't know, like the solder like snake say like it gets to like the first year that's under stress so much like that they drop out of school or something like that, or it's having a whole bunch of these like bad consequences. Like I was just wondering at the point where you step in, I guess for maybe
It's a case by case basis. And I know this isn't a full answer to your question, and I think that question is entirely valid. It requires a lot of depth that I don't necessarily think we have the time for.
Yeah.
But the reality is, if they get bad, our standards for things getting bad tends to be lower than other university subreddits. I know that some university subreddits can really have low kind of barriers. I don't want to name any, but you can guess the big ones. We do step in proactively with anything in regards to suicide, with anything in regards to mental health. We had a post about an international student worried about medical insurance, and it sounded like he had blood poisoning. So, at that point, we don't just step in. I actually called the Marine Drive residents. We were actively trying to make sure that this person was safe, and we do step in quite often. One of the moderators, when one person was kicked out of their home, they stepped up and they actively wanted to drive out to put this person up in housing at UBC. We contacted residents managers. We contacted homeless shelters. We did everything within our boundaries. We probably could have done more. I think there are some things that we haven't learned about that we should be doing. We actively step in cases that get bad. We actively reach out in cases that get bad. And we know that at UBC too, within other post-preparing the CUS, other people have stepped in just as well. So now you probably want a more clear answer on when we step in. We step in when any of these things are mentioned. We step in when we think that these situations will go bad, and the moderation actions that happen can range from anywhere from the post being removed, the post being locked, or the post being ghost locked, which is basically when we have to manually approve each comment that comes in to screen out bad apples. Just realistically, the response depends on the situation and can be very, very dramatic.
Just to step in really briefly, just because we have our next presentation at 6:10. If it's okay with everybody, and I don't know what your schedule is like, William, if we could get a motion to move any further discussion to the discussion section so that we can have the presentation from the next group. If there's time, I'll explain the way this presentation is going to work as soon as I'm done here. But if there's time after that one, we could definitely come back to this kind of discussion so we don't have to push it all the way back to the discussion section. If that works for you guys, just because I don't want to keep you here until 10, 11,
Sure.
that works. Okay, so I'll ask for a motion on that in a couple seconds, but just to give everybody a little bit of information on how this next one's going to work. So I just spoke with Jordan from PVCC, and they won't be giving a presentation per se, just because with all the documents we've received, they feel like the information is kind of all there. So what the presentation will consist of is kind of just a discussion between us and Jordan over speakerphone. So if any questions that you guys have and any questions that he has, the 25 minutes will kind of be allotted to just a Q&A pretty much between the two parties. And then I let Jordan know that in the discussion section on our agenda, we'll come back, and that's when the vote on the issue will take place. They're not planning on being present for that just because that's obviously late. They're an hour ahead, so that's a little bit much. So just so that everybody's clear, in the executive board, the executive decision on this issue was to not provide funding to BVCC that they're requesting. And so the vote that will be taken today will be to either overturn that decision and provide them funding, or uphold that decision and not provide them funding, just so that everybody's on the same page. So with that, is everybody, we have 3 minutes now before they're expecting a call. So just so everybody's clear on that, can I have a motion? Actually, you know what? In the next 2 minutes, we can ask another question to William, or does anybody have any questions?
Yeah.
So in your question and then in your answer, unfortunately, can we just be a little brief as possible? Maddie, sorry.
So you mentioned that there are ways to use RUBC to monitor feedback with CUS and undergraduate societies in general. So what's a way that we can partner with you
In general, we tend to be very neutral, but I can, if you'd like, to occasionally send like, any relevant. We actually don't get a lot about the CUS anymore for some reason. I think either that's probably a positive sign or that's. It does happen occasionally. We do occasionally see posts complaining about CUS or business clubs in general. I can definitely pass it along. But like establishing a official presence in general is almost like at first it might generate some animosity, but I guarantee you in the long term it will lead to like people having more positive thoughts about like the CUS. Like just to really touch upon quickly, the AMS Vice President of Administration, Chris Scott, we loved that guy like last year. He had an active presence. He commented when it needed. And in the end, we left with positive thoughts about the AMS and what it was doing, particularly his portfolio. Mostly his portfolio. Only his portfolio.
Okay, my question is pretty quick. So, what undergraduate societies that you reached out to have kind of like, as of right now, is there anyone with an active presence on RUBC?
No, we're still waiting to see back from the communications committees of each. It is the choice of each in an undergraduate constituency whether or not they want to partake. Some that feel it doesn't have a ton of relevance. For most part, the focus is on clubs. We want to see where clubs advertising there, especially. We're going to start reaching out to like AMS clubs in general.
My last question is a little bit more philosophical. I was wondering how you would ensure that your community stays organic, that people post more organic things, if they feel that there's too strong of a presence of CUS, because you mentioned that being fairly neutral has a lot of discussion. I was wondering where you'd see the line of we're involved in that, but it doesn't affect the conversation.
I'm confused how to answer that question, to be honest. I understand it to the best of my understanding. That's a good question. Should we push this until later? I actually haven't thought too much about that, and that's actually a really good question.
We can push this until after we come back because we'll have the 25 minutes allotted to the next presenter, and then once they're done, there is somebody coming to the meeting. It will be present here as well, so there'll be the person over the phone and here. Hopefully they'll come in the next couple minutes. But yeah, so we're not going to ask you to stay very long, and so we'll give you time to think about that question and hopefully get back to you.
Sure.
In a couple. Yeah, I'm going to give them a call in the next little bit. But if you guys in the meantime want to, they are expecting the call at 6:10. I'll give them a call, but then we'll wait for Vincent, who's the person to come. So yeah, personal privilege. If you guys want to take a quick break, give you guys 2 minutes just to get you settled, then we'll get going. I am giving him a call, guys, so just be aware. You guys will be able to be heard. It's on speakerphone.
Wait, is this connected to this?
It's on this. We're going to have to see. We'll see if it has to go through Skype or if we can do it on this.
Hey, Michael.
Hey, Jordan.
Hey, how's it going?
Good, not too bad. We're just going to wait until Vincent gets here, then we'll start, okay?
Okay.
Here, we'll just test to see if you can hear everybody. Erwin, can you say something?
Hello?
Did you hear that?
Sort of. I can kind of make it out. It's kind of quiet, but I should be fine.
So like anyone in the back row needs to speak
Yeah,
up.
so we'll just get anybody in the back row to speak up.
Okay. Okay, that sounds good.
I'll try and move you up as close as possible.
Sorry about that.
Sorry, Jordan. If you want to try and Skype in, we can.
Sorry?
If you want to try and Skype in, we can.
Okay, no worries. We'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Sounds good.
I'm sure it's fine.
I will email you my Skype account now, though, just in case.
Okay, that sounds good.
All right. Let's see if my Skype thing actually works. Actually, does somebody have Skype up and ready on their laptop or like downloaded? Because mine's horrible.
Why did Google hang out?
He's on his work laptop apparently, so it doesn't.
Best way to do it is to take this.
It'll be from like 2000.
It's up to the
Are you gonna do some guys? Okay. Would you mind setting up yours? That's awesome.
I don't know this guy might be on.
Well, because he doesn't have. Yes, he's on. Vincent's also here. He's co-chair.
Hi.
Okay. So Vincent, I just had a quick conversation with him, and basically this time is technically presentation time, but since you guys don't have a presentation to give, we'll just kind of turn it into like a Q&A, pretty much. So if you and Jordan wanted to kind of start off by just talking about your point of view, and then we'll come back with any questions. You guys can ask us any questions as well. That sound good?
Yeah, that's good.
Cool. So Jordan, can you still hear me okay?
Kinda.
All right, so we might have to try and figure out a way for to get you on a computer.
You have YouTube login?
Yep.
Yeah, you know what's easier? Why don't I circulate dial in and then you guys dial in and then I'll conference call. So I'll give you guys.
Unfortunately,
we
we
actually
don't
don't have
have
a dial-in
phone
for it.
system.
I can circulate my dial in from work.
Oh,
So
we just Skype is better.
Yeah, we'll actually use Skype, Jordan, just because we don't have the dial in this room.
sure. Okay, sure. We'll use Skype.
Then we can connect the
Do you want to give me? Why don't I give you my account?
Sounds good. 1 second, let me just.
I'll text it to you.
That's perfect. Okay.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks.
Talk to you soon.
Does the instructor mic need to be
You want just HDMI snap.
No, I thought you needed like read the agenda.
I want to link it to this mic.
What? You can do that? You want me to know when?
Sure. So just in the meantime, guys, if you guys have any more questions for William, or William wants to answer any more questions. That? No, it doesn't matter.
Oh, did you guys see Jordan, like, 75.
Okay, let's use your laptop then.
Okay. Okay.
So you need the laptop.
I don't know. I don't usually. We'll see.
Yeah.
My laptop's ancient.
Oh. Oh, wait, you don't.
Don't worry about that.
Yeah.
I'm trying. It's all good.
Want like the Jack like video?
We'll see if what happens here.
I think you have like the
I have both, and I clicked on both, but it's not. Neither is working. So what we can do is no, it's not working for me.
What about this laptop?
We would have to, but the thing is, we'd have to. Oh,
You got both up.
I know what. You can mute your microphone in this area, right? No, you can't mute. Why would you mute the microphone? And no one can hear us. Because like, if the voice Skype is going through here, and this is going through, this is gonna be like,
I actually don't know my screen.
right? Isn't it?
I don't know.
Because like hypothetically, if
I can't even get Skype open. Not right now.
I don't know,
We're not using that.
can you log in?
Yeah.
Can you hear us and listen to two? Why don't we use mics?
True.
We have two.
Okay,
Pass it.
sure.
Yeah, okay, if he calls in, you can put your phone onto this end, so we can hear him through the speakers, and then if you want.
But wouldn't that have echo though?
Better than what we got.
It's just adjust the volume.
Thank you, AJ. Thank you. Bless your soul.
You got it.
One check.
So much.
Check, check, 1, 2.
Wait, who's
Yes,
that?
it
Oh my
is.
god.
Hey, Mike.
Hey, Jordan, is this working?
I assume it's not working, right?
No, it's not quite working.
Let's try this one. Why don't we skip the first initial discussion? If it really doesn't work, I'll just circulate one of our dial-ins,
Okay.
my Scotia dial-in, and then a couple of you guys can just call through your phone. And it's basically a conference call, and I can probably hear all of you guys if you can hear me.
So we actually have handheld mics now.
Okay.
So, because we can all hear you pretty well.
Oh, okay.
Phoebe's in the back row. Can you hear Phoebe in a sec here?
Hello?
Yes, I can hear that.
Sounds good. So we'll just hand the mic around whenever we have a question or something.
Sure. That's perfect. Awesome.
Cool. Sounds good. So sorry about that confusion.
No, thanks for setting this up.
So what we'll do is I'm just gonna close the door. Then. All right. So if either you or Vincent want to start us off, just with anything that you guys want to put in.
Well, essentially, I think what I wrote in terms of when I sent you guys the email, that's kind of what I just want to kind of start a discussion and kind of chat with you guys about like the reason for it not carrying through with the funding. We're not planning to do a presentation or anything. I just kind of want to know your thoughts, and also just because you guys weren't, obviously there at the time, and you guys it was like 3-4 years ago, so kind of want to bring some extra color to the situation and ask questions that I can answer. And the other thing is I also reached out to, I found like track Jordan Parent down, and he also confirmed that he made me schedule time. I can forward you that email that we discussed. Yeah, have you guys all read the email that I wrote, or I think a couple weeks ago?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry?
And what's everyone's thoughts? I kind of just want a discussion more than that presentation.
Sounds good. So does anybody have any questions about the email that was circulated a little while ago?
Does everybody know which one he's referring
And just for as an introduction, so some sort of context. So I was one of the co-founders of PVCC. I've been part of CUS for a while. I was also on the board a long time ago. I was chairperson for PVCC for 3 years, so I was part of the kind of growth of PVCC. And then I went and worked in finance, working in investment banking now. And kind of advise the team, and also I'm also here on representing the board.
Right.
So hi Jordan. Well, it's so weird hearing this. So I circulated the initial chain of emails. Can you hear
Sorry,
me?
guys, I actually can't hear that.
Oh. Hello? Is this
Sorry,
better? Is this better?
a little bit better.
No, wait, it should be bad.
Hello? Is this bad? Hello? Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Is it worse if I use the mic or if I don't use the mic?
it's better with the mic.
Oh, okay, okay. Maybe I'll just talk. Let me know if you can't hear me.
Okay.
So I did circulate your email to the board as well as your appeals email to the board. I'm Daphne, by the way. Sorry, I don't know if you could identify me by voice. But yeah, and so some of the execs are here, and they can tell you, I guess, a little bit about why the appeal was made. But beyond that, we have a lot of board members in the room, and you can kind of give, I guess, in more detail your side of the story, and you and Vincent can do that, and then the board can make their decision if they want to appeal the executive decision tonight through a vote. And yeah, I'll let Maddie Depak, who is our ombudsperson, kind of take it away.
Yeah, so I guess the context for the original executive decision was based around, so we knew that in December of 2014, the board of directors approved a motion to contribute $134 per CUS member to a total of 170 students, or 22,780. And that this funding would be contingent upon a set of terms to be approved by the executive council at their next meeting. But we were unable to find, there was no mention actually of the funding request at the following executive meeting. There was no evidence that we were able to find that these contingencies were set. So during our executive discussion on the matter, we sort of raised a few concerns, one of which was that the CUS actually has already contributed funds to help NIBC as a result of the funding discrepancy. We funded NIBC $20,000. In addition, we were unsure whether we should grant these funds considering just how much time had passed and what the statute of limitations on that would be. And we also felt, and I know this is something that you disagree with, and I think there's definitely arguments to be made on both sides, but we felt that the money that had been initially granted would no longer be used essentially for the same purpose. This money is now essentially going directly back to NIBC, who we have now funded. Yeah, so.
Okay.
Wait, sorry, are you good? Great. Then Jordan, we'll let you respond to that, and then we'll go back to the next question.
Okay, great, awesome. Thanks for a thorough discussion about that. I appreciate it. And I actually didn't really know much about the NIBC arrangement, so that's something that I probably need a bit more color. So in terms of terms and all stuff, so it's always been communicated with Jordan Hurd, who was the VP Finance at the time. So he was coordinating all the terms, and then we also messaged him for the screenshot of the email. He also confirmed that we showed him and displayed that we met the terms, which the terms were essentially putting CUS as top sponsor on the website, logos on marketing materials, and also engraving logos on like trophies and checks. And then we also had 20% or $20 discounts. And we did meet the funding where we sold out more than 170 students. We ended up selling, I think the number is 183 that year, which is 80 students more than the previous year, which was 100 students. So we essentially spent the money to fund the conference, fund the competition, and Jordan Hurd also acknowledged that. And also reached out to Jordan Hurd a couple weeks ago. I can forward this email to you right now, where he confirmed that to the best of his knowledge, he made a mistake. So that's like, he represented CUS, he was the main person in contact, and there's no one better or no one more knowledgeable than him during the time. And even though I hear you about in terms of happening a long time ago, that was the money that was spent already, and it basically creates a deficit in the current accounts. And as a result, NIBC has been really harassing the executive committee, the current executive committee, for that funding that we essentially use their money, but this is essentially should have been CUS money. So in that case, in terms of like, you know, having a long time ago, we spent the money, we carried our promises, so I don't understand why, you know, why we won't be getting the full funding when it's being spent for the students. And now it's like a rolling basis, right? We're basically spent it. So.
Okay. We have another question.
Wait, actually, do you guys want me to forward you the email from?
That would be amazing. Yes, please.
Yeah.
And if you could forward that to Natalie, just the person who's been in contact with you most recently,
sure.
I think.
Yeah, I'm just gonna go like this. Yeah, I'm just gonna head back to my desk and I can forward it from my computer.
Sounds good.
Sorry, you guys carry it.
And then feel free to answer the question as well, Vince. Angela, would you like to Yep, ask a question.
Hello, Jordan. My name is Angela. I'm one of the second year reps, and I was at the physical executive meeting where the executive council had voted not to fund, but I have been keeping up the emails as well as the meeting minutes. I was actually looking at the October 31st email, and where you said the basis of the funding was no longer be used for original purpose. You had said that that is not true. However, I was looking over on the end of that paragraph, and you had said that so the funding was overlooked for both NIPC and PBCC.
Sorry, you're cutting off. It's really cutting off a bit. Why don't I circulate the dial-in? It's actually much easier for me because
No worries,
I can't really hear it.
I'll walk closer towards the phone so that.
Sorry.
So Angela's just gonna move close.
I'm physically going to move closer. Is this better?
Can you continue to talk?
Okay, great. Yeah, I was actually looking at the October 31st email where you said the basis of funding was you had disagreed, and however, I was looking at the end of the paragraph, you mentioned that funding was originally taken out of NIBC and that you were the funding which we will now have to rightfully return back, and that NIBC was demanding the full payment of $9,780 back from PBCC, and you said that was rightfully so. And I was wondering, would it be correct to that this implies that this $9,700 would go directly to NIBC rather than PBCC?
That is correct. So we will be. The thing is, I know, from what it seems, you guys funded NIBC, but that's not really PBCC paying it back. NIBC doesn't see it that way, and they continue to ask PBCC for the money. So in that respect, and NIBC and PBCC are completely governed differently, and we're not on the same board, different teams. So you guys funding them doesn't mean they're not continuing to harass the current team. So as a result, they still think we owe them that amount of money that we basically use from their account. So I'm not sure how much you guys funded NIBC. So how much did you guys fund NIBC?
20,000.
But is that for the conference, or is that 20,000 just for PBCC's deficit?
Do we have an answer?
Because presumably it's going to be for the conference and competition that's supposed to be that they're going to get regardless, right? I think what Phil was telling me, they were originally asking for 30K and you guys gave them 20K or something like that. I don't really recall. He was the only reason he started harassing the current team is because I pushed back a little bit, just because I have a very strong relationship with him. But they don't see that funding that you guys gave them part of PBCC's. Basically, that the commitment that CUS is supposed to give PBCC, that they don't see it that way. They see it as money for their own conference.
Right. Do you have any follow-up, Angela? Comments to that?
Confirm that the amount of money would be directly given to NIBC after PBCC had received it. Just want to clarify.
Like the 9,780.
Yes, the exact dollar amount.
So that is the money that we will be returning to NIBC because it is their money. And I hear you guys about in terms of the arrangement, as long as you can clarify to NIBC where the 20,000 or whatever the amount is allocated, is basically CUS money for PBCC that was given to NIBC, basically repaying it back to NIBC. We're fine with that as long as that's literally what it's meant to be. But they're basically saying that means this year, whatever funding they get from the 20 grand that they got, that's what you said?
Yes.
So essentially that means they only got 10 grand to run this year's conference, which is fine as long as you say the 10 grand is for you to run this year's conference and the other 10 grand is payment that was supposed to be made for PBCC, but now it's given back to you and repaid. I'm fine with that because you're essentially saying you're really only giving them 10 grand for the conference.
Right. Okay. We have AJ with a question as well, Jordan.
Hey, Jordan, can you hear me?
Sort of.
All right. He's just going to come down to the front. We have a system now, I think. And then, all right.
Hey Jordan, AJ fourth rep. I was wondering what kind of sparked this analysis on your guys' side. It's been 3 years since you haven't received the money, so I'm just trying to figure out why now.
Yeah, no, that's a totally good, fair question too. And I was very surprised as well. Obviously, I graduated 3-4 years ago, and all of a sudden now I'm back into this whole conversation, pitching to the CUS, which I haven't done since like many years ago. In terms of, so NMDC this year made a big expansion to Toronto. So like I think over like every single year they have a bit of surplus, and NMDC is huge, a big budget. And this year, because they're expanding Toronto, a lot bigger expenses being made, and they realize now they're spending really all their money. They realize that they're missing money. And in terms of the account that's being how PCC, NMDC, and Finance Club being run. So Finance Club has always been the club itself like 10 years ago. NMDC and PCC were small competitions back then, and they slowly grew up into their much bigger team and much bigger events that kind of overshadow Finance Club. But Finance Club has always been the only person who can, or the only entity that can really get in touch with like the bank accounts. Only the treasurer at Finance Club can. So essentially, the Finance Club basically thought, like we told them we got this amount of money, and they kind of allocated NMDC's money over to us. And NBC always had a big service, so they never knew until now. And now that they realize they've been, before I came on, they've been harassing like the co-chairs for like constantly about the money. So then we look into the budget and we realize there's the money that's supposed to be from CUS was just taken out of NFDC's account. So, and obviously now in hindsight, we should definitely not have link accounts where people are moving around your money. Finance Club basically moved the money, and then now they realize. But yeah, I think moving forward, they should all have different accounts. Absolutely.
So that's certainly something that we can look into. But I'm more curious. So the entire purpose of, I guess, this discussion is because NIBC is now on PVCC's back trying to get the money, right? So essentially, whatever we confirm today is going to go directly to them. Is that being confirmed on your end?
Yes, and like I said before, it's of the 20 grand that you guys gave them this year. If you think 10 grand is what they deserve for their competition conference, I'm not sure how much it works to in terms of per CUS students. I don't think NBC would be very happy about that because they've asked for 30K and they only got 20K, and they think that's just for them. And if CUS makes this like really clear and we send it to NIBC, and at least PVC does not owe NIBC that amount of money anymore. Like the thing is, like obviously as students, former commerce students, whatever we do, we can't just take someone else's money. We have to rightfully pay them back, and that's what we're essentially trying to do. And if you guys think that's the 10 grand you guys already paid them, that's fine, but you just have to very carefully communicate that, and that means they really only deserve 10K for their conference too. We just want to rightfully return that money back to NBC, which is what we owe them.
Okay, that's all from my end.
So just before we move on, guys, raise your hand if you're intending to ask a question, please. Is there just one more of you? Two? So we have two more people who are interested in asking questions, Jordan, and then we'll let you guys have the last word, and then we'll consider this presentation kind of over, and then we'll move on. Does that work for you?
That works for me.
Perfect.
Hey, my name. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Sorry? Oh, you can
yes,
hear me. Okay.
I can hear you.
Hi, I'm Jacob. I'm the third-year rep. And I just have like a question for you. So
okay.
When we were originally planning to sponsor you, it was as a sponsor. So now that we're talking with, NIBC, you owe NIBC money, we originally just funded to become a sponsor. So we're not really accountable to liaise or kind of like manage the money. So would it be possible for you to contact NIBC directly and just talk it out?
Wait, sorry, what do you mean?
So like, it's like we can't really be like the middleman kind of. We just agreed to be a sponsor. So it's hard for us to be like a middleman in the whole situation. So.
Well, I mean, it's not really being the middleman, because essentially what you'll be doing is reverting back to the old transactions and actually carrying through from the old budget, as opposed to creating a new transaction. It should have been in the older record. You should pull from the older surplus. Right?
Sorry, say that one more time.
Like, you're essentially, I don't really understand what you mean by meeting.
Oh, I'm just saying, like, as we were just originally a sponsor for the conference, it's hard for us to be like a middleman to manage the money kind of missing. So would it be possible for you to contact NIBC directly just to kind of clarify things and then see if our funding for NIBC would be kind of viable to be a payback kind of before us having to be a middleman?
I think it's probably best coming from you guys, because you guys are, at the end of the day.
Yeah, okay.
Like, I don't know what they're obviously going to say no, right? Like, they're like, no, you guys still PVC owe 10 grand, which we do. But essentially it's supposed to be from CUS. Like, it's probably better for you guys to work with them, because you already paid them, essentially. I'm not sure, depending on the amount. Like, but it's probably better for you guys to negotiate, and we don't want to be part. The thing is, I'm not sure you guys got Jordan Hearn's email. He very clearly says, to the best of his knowledge, we should have gotten the funding. Like, it's kind of, it's a problem that we didn't make. PVC didn't make it. We carried all the responsibilities we had. We did whatever Jordan wanted us to do. We gave him all the terms that we did. We met all the students, and that year was the record high, and that's kind of what led to the growth of PVCC. And we helped an additional 80 students. And about the year, Enterprise, which was another entrepreneurship conference, basically was shut down, and PVCC was the only source of entrepreneurship. And we really risked, we really pushed really hard, and it was really challenging. A big amount of students from 100 to 180. We gave it our all, and we did it. And we found out that we didn't actually get the money, which is very disappointing. And it's hard for me to comprehend that us executing all the terms, we did everything we had to do. And even your EP Finance, who was the main person in contact, admitted he made a mistake, and we still don't get the funding now. So I'm a little, that's why when I first heard about this, I was quite disappointed, quite unhappy just hearing how, obviously the reason we're coming back to NBC is because that's the right thing to do. And we have integrity, and whatever we owe them, we'll pay them back. Okay. And that's the exact same way.
Okay.
Yeah. If you guys are able to pay them back now that you guys owe us, we're fine. As long as you communicate that message to them.
Okay. Oh, thank you. That answered my question though. So, yeah. I think we have some more questions as well. So.
Yes. So we actually have Simran, then Maddie, then Victor, who just have a question to ask, and then we'll be done.
Okay.
Just wanted to, sorry, it's Simran. I'm the AMS rep. I don't know if you can hear me. Is it fine?
I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So we just wanted to kind of talk about our point of view again about this idea of the middleman. So what we really feel is when we provide the sponsorship money, once we make that commitment, our job does not go into being responsible for how that money is spent. And anything around that is really the responsibility of the people receiving the money. So from that point of view, we think that any discrepancies and any problems should really be dealt with in the two other actors. We really feel like our job is to step back from this and not engage head on with sponsorship money that we've already.
The thing is, do you guys not realize that there was a mistake that you guys made, and your responsibility is to actually execute the agreement that you guys committed to? It's not. It's an agreement that we all committed to, and you guys failed. It is the responsibility to continue to commit to that. And when it happened, it's a money that it's basically an arrangement, and I work in investment banking and M&A. It's an arrangement that we both executed, and CUS basically failed to carry on that responsibility.
So,
and it's a mistake that I don't know how else to really make this.
So just so that we can all kind of move forward on the same page, Jordan. From my understanding, just sitting here, basically the discrepancy comes because PVCC didn't actually receive the money that we said we would provide them, correct?
That's right.
And so the problem that you have with this middleman argument is that by us saying, oh, it's not our responsibility how you spend the money, the fault comes in the fact that you didn't receive that money in the first place.
That's right. That's exactly it. Like we should have received the money and that's it. We don't want to be the middle person. We don't want to be in between you guys and NBC. We just want to receive the money. Like that's what should have happened.
Right. Okay. And then I don't know if someone has
that's really good to clarify, like kind of both of our perceptions of the issue.
Okay.
So yeah, I'm good with that.
Okay.
Yeah, like the thing is, look. It's obviously you guys are new to the board this year, or maybe you guys have been on board previous years, but this happened a long time ago. It wasn't you guys, but it was a mistake that Jordan Hearn made, and he clearly confirmed that and made it to it. And all we want to really show is that we should have received the funding. It's not our mistake. CU has made a mistake in the past, and it's now kind of responsibility and time to really uphold that commitment that you guys honor.
Right. So then we have Maddie, just quick question.
Right, and just before I ask my question, I just wanted to clear one more thing up kind of regarding the NIBC funding. And that was that in their presentation, they had mentioned the financial restraints on account of the funding discrepancy, but this wasn't meant, sponsorship wasn't meant as a repayment in lieu of PVCC or to repay the funds that we neglected to. Yeah, and then I guess with my question, you had mentioned earlier that when you were with the original conference, you ended up actually not needing that funding at the time to fund the conference. You said you funded the conference through money raised in your competition, but that it was later spent kind of on a rolling basis and was basically spent?
No, we thought we received the money and we just used the account, the money from the account, a joint account, that's where NIBC funds and PVCC have.
But not necessarily on the conference, you were saying.
It was that. What do you mean it's not for the conference? No.
You said you mentioned that you had, at the time, you had enough funds for the conference through money raised in your competition, but that you did later spend the money and it was essentially spent on a rolling basis, sort of because you knew you had those funds.
Oh, absolutely not. At least when I ran it, it breaks even every single year. There's no extra funding. Even for Vincent right now, they don't have a single penny. Like every year we start with zero. At least when I ran it. And we essentially spent all the money. It was and the thing is, we try to break even. We don't want to have a surplus. We don't want to have a deficit. And having a surplus doesn't really make the next year better. It's just next year's chairperson should also have the responsibility of going to the budget by themselves and not having a big surplus from the previous year. That's what I believe in. And the 3 years that I ran for all 3 years as chairperson, and it's always starting from scratch. We spent all the money that we have that year and that is what we want to do, to spend on either in prize money or in extra mentorship program or extra networking event where students actually get all the value of that year. Like there is no surplus. Right. We break even essentially every year. And then that's the thing, we spend the money during that time and that's the money that's taken out of NNBC's account. And so that money is being used for adding an extra 80 students. Otherwise, there's no way we would have added an extra 80 students because that would just create a deficit. Every head count, like you run a hotel, it's 120 per person, including room and all that stuff. And we charge $40, $50, and then we also have a $20 discount for CUS students. So every person that we're adding is losing quite a bit of money. But also because of this bigger attendance, we have larger rooms, more additional networking events. So if we weren't promised that money, there's no way we would have increased the audience by almost double.
Right, okay, thanks for clearing that up.
And then last question, Jordan.
It's not. Hey, my name is Victor. I'm the third-year rep as well. This is so much a question, but I guess just like a clarification point, kind of on our side. But I guess from our end, we find that like the funds like that you're requesting are from like 3 years ago, and I guess I know we're not the same board as the 2014 board, and we are kind of associated with the same organization. But it's just really hard to, I guess, justify, I guess, repaying back something from so far back in the present time. And also, I guess, coming from our end this year, the surplus that we do have to spend has greatly been decreased like since the 2014 time. So it is kind of a different situation that we're dealing with now in the present as well. And yeah, and I guess I just wanted to get a clarification. I guess now, I guess like the reason why you're coming back at this time, like 3 years later, is kind of now to solve kind of a funding allocation mix-up kind of with NIBC. The reason why now?
Sorry, what do you mean?
Well, you're kind of coming for the money now for funds that were kind of should have been paid out 3 years ago, because I guess you're just looking for funds now to settle kind of a funding allocation with NIBC.
Well, the thing is, if we don't get this funding, basically NIBC, everything that comes into the account, NIBC will essentially just take, and there's no way, like I was still here to mentor students, and I'll be very disappointed if the conference not being run next year because of this 10K that's he's going to take from the accounts. So essentially, I think I want the conference to continue to happen, and where students can still present their business ideas. And essentially, I want to help. But essentially, I want to fix this and help basically bring this platform back alive. Because otherwise, NIBC is just not gonna just let it go. So.
And the conference isn't at all like can't run at all without this, I guess, funding. Like this is kind of like a critical amount.
Oh, absolutely! 10 grand for a student-run competition that's a significant amount. And I think without this money, there's no way PDCs can run. There's absolutely no way. It's almost, I found it very challenging. Like even with 3 years of running the conference, it was 10K at deficit immediately, and there's not a lot of sponsorship currently, and basically starting at zero, it's very challenging to just bring back to the budget.
Okay, sounds good. All right, thank you.
So that was the last question we had on our list. Vincent or Jordan, do you guys have any questions for us or any last comments?
Sorry, go ahead.
Jordan, do you have any questions you can ask her? Or any last comments?
Vincent's just asking if you have any last questions or comments before he goes.
Yeah, like, I was trying to answer his other couple points too. So essentially, even though it happened a long time ago, and the thing is, it is a CUS commitment as a student group. It's not like you're this year and whatever year. It's a commitment that's committed by our organization and your organization. For instance, if we're going to say the exact same thing in NIBC and be like, no, that was happened a long time ago, and that doesn't count. And it doesn't really work that way in real life, especially. In any business scenario, whatever you commit to, whatever you sign, whatever you arrange, you commit to it. And it doesn't matter when it happened, you continue after it. It's basically kind of it's an arrangement, right, in any business scenario. So I just don't really understand why. And the thing is, it's not really PTC's really problem. Like, it's not their fault, and there's not a problem where they were the victim. They were CUS made a mistake, and that's the reality. And it would be very surprising not to honor that. I'll be very disappointed as an alumni, especially. And I'll be very disappointed, and I'll be extremely shocked. And this will actually make me really upset about Solid as a whole. Not committing and honoring a commitment that they've arranged, and it's basically breaking the contract and not holding up to your word. And that's the part where I'm very upset.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Jordan. Vincent, do you have any?
I mean, the thing is, Jordan ran the conference like 2014, so he knows most of the information. I can only.
Sorry, Vince, I can't hear you. Can you also go to the phone?
Yeah. Thanks, Vincent. The phone's there, so you can stay wherever you want.
Oh, can you hear me, Jordan?
Yeah.
So really I can only offer the perspective of right now, because similar to you, I was handed the situation, right? Like, I mean, 2014, back then I was a first year, I wasn't even Sauder. Half of you weren't even in UBC yet. Most likely still in high school. And the oldest of us were first years. So this is really just a situation that both of us don't want. Like, we have something that, we have a debt right now, and this debt basically happened because we thought that we had that money, right? Like 3-4 years ago, we had, you run a conference, you have operating expenses, you have net income. Part of this 9,000 was part of our net income. And I guess for me, what I see is that it's very simple. The simple problem was an accounting issue. So FA allocated the money to us instead of NIBC. So what that means is that for us, we had our own separate books. NIBC has their own separate books thinking they have a 9,000. We have our books thinking we have a 9,000, but that 9,000 wasn't sent. And think about it. If we tell UBC FA every single time, sponsorship comes, you go like, oh, 3,000's coming in, 2,000's coming in, another 2,000's coming in. NIBC does the same. They're going to be spammed. They have their own conference to run. We're all students. We all know how that happens. We all know, things get out of hand. And that's typically not how you would want to work in a work environment. And that's really what I see as a problem. It's that there's this money that just disappeared that should have been paid. And I understand what's the problem right now. In terms of the issue where you don't want to be the middleman is because you don't want to go back on your word. It's because, CUS is it's authority. It's a power of authority. And if you go back on your words, it's typically just bad brand image. All of us know this. And similar in our situation, we could technically ask, but think about the amount of power that we have. How would you feel if, the Art Society came in and asked you about it? You guys are the same power level. You need someone like, I forgot, what is it? UBC.
AMS. AUS.
Yeah.
We want another.
Yeah, someone of a higher power. AMS to solve that problem. It's a similar situation here. We can try to talk about it, but we'll probably talk about it for a long time. And probably get nothing. We're just going to be bitter relationships. We're just going to graduate. The problem goes next. PVCC doesn't run, etc., etc. None of this problem gets solved in the first place. NIBC will then be in trouble because they don't have money. And in the future, maybe NIBC will fall. And that's 2 conferences down. And that's the harsh reality of it, right? That, you need money to run a conference. And the reality of me looking at conferences right now, and I'm sure all of you know, is that conferences are heavily subsidized by CUS. And most conferences will fail. And we understand that. We're taking steps to try to stop that. We're taking steps to try not to lean on CUS too much. We're trying to cut costs. We're trying to find higher sponsorship. But it's tough as a student-run conference. Like, why would Big 4 companies want to sponsor you more than $2,000? Right? Like, what is the value to them? And that's the thing with conferences, right? Jordan, is that okay? Like, you have
I agree perfectly. And well said. I completely agree with you.
Yeah, I think that's the main issue here. And I think the second issue about, you have 2 issues. One issue was about the money being paid to NIBC. I think that should have been paid in the first place, and it was just carried forward, it's just accrued. And the second one of the name, it's that we just can't solve it. And the third one for a solution that I really want to provide is that you don't have to pay it within this year, right? You can say $5,000 this year, $5,000 next year. But then the action items will then be, what does the ombudsman person do for the next ombudsman person to know? What does the president do for the next president to know? How does this carry forward? And we should be looking at how to improve it rather than stop it. Because if you don't do something to improve it now, then it's never going to be improved, right? You're just going to be doing the same thing over and over and over again. And there's going to be different clubs that are going to have the same issue, maybe accounting error, and then they're not going to have money, and then you're going to blame it on the past, and then there's going to be no money again. So that's just really what I see in this situation. And I understand the problems, and if you guys can't do it, there's nothing we can do because you are the power of authority. If you say no, there's nothing much we can do. Maybe we can ask the forgot the name of it again, AMS. Yeah, but that's about it, right? Yeah, that's it.
So you can, if we were to choose to uphold the decision made by the executive team, you would be able to appeal to the AMS.
I'm not sure about that. I'm just saying it because
No,
like.
you are.
So if we voted to uphold the decision by the exec that we're not funding you the 9,000 that you were asking for from the last decision, like 3 years ago, you guys would then be able to appeal to the AMS, which is the body above us.
I need Jordan to confirm on that.
No, like you can.
Oh, we can.
No,
Oh,
you
as an option.
can.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
As an option moving
Yeah,
forward
okay.
if you guys
Gotcha.
want to.
Yeah.
So then, thank you, Vincent, and thank you, Jordan. We're just going to have, just so that when we go into the discussion, we have the vote, because we want to make the vote with as much information as informed as possible. We just have one more question before we cut it off, because we'll cut it off at 7. And then just before Victor asks questions, Jordan, Vincent, you're invited to stay for the discussion when we vote on this. It's going to be in an hour or so. It'll be a little late. And Jordan, we're also live streaming this. So if you wanted to like observe the discussion, unfortunately the discussion section is only for board and exec members. But if you guys wanted to observe the discussion, you'd be more than welcome to hop on the live stream. But that's unfortunately all we can offer you. That discussion period is just kind of for the people on the board.
Okay.
And then we just have one last question from Victor.
Okay, hey, just back again. So when we did fund NIBC, we can confirm that the $20,000 that we did pay them out to was to bail them out because they did claim that PVCC did kind of take some of their funds from that joint bank account. Can you kind of comment on that part?
Sorry, what do you mean?
Like comment on the part that PVCC like took money from NIBC, and that's why we had to bail them out with that $20,000 in the first place. I'm just kind of wondering what happened with that whole situation.
Sorry, I don't really know what you're asking. Like that's so that happened.
So
I'm not sure what you're asking me.
So to give you some context, Jordan, that 20,000 that we provided to NIBC when they originally asked for 30,000, their justification for coming and asking us that was that they needed that money as kind of like an emergency because they had a deficit that was because PVCC used money from your guys' joint bank account. And then so that since you guys had spent that money, they weren't able to. And so they needed that extra money from us. And so in our decision, when we only gave them 20K as opposed to 30K, that they basically, they weren't getting all the money that they say you spent.
Okay, so NIBC and PVC never had a discussion when they pitched to it, and we never really heard about that arrangement. I really like kind of casually like someone mentioned it, but NIBC has never talked to PVCC about that. They would never gotten. They never told us, oh, part of the 20K that they got is for PVCC's deficit. They never brought that up to us. They mentioned that they asked for 30K, but they only got 20K. They've never talked about PVCC and talking like there's no discussion about PVCC's partake in that pitch.
Okay.
And so I guess was there any issue like when they say that PVCC I guess took funds from the NIBC, the money that should have been used towards NIBC, true or false?
Sorry, you're cutting off a little bit. Like, sorry, can you say that again?
When NIBC claims that I guess you guys took money from them, what would be your comment on that part?
Well, we're looking. So Finance Club went through all the budget from all the previous years, and we looked at it, and we noticed there was basically 10 grand missing from the CUS. And when they basically said PVC spent money, we were like, yeah, like that was the money that we spent. But it was in the joint account, and Finance Club basically misallocated it, and we were surprised, and that was it. Like I think everyone was pretty surprised, and the Finance Club just kind of didn't really do it properly at the time.
Okay.
All right.
And then I guess also I was just wondering why you didn't take any I guess corrective measures to like I guess request that 10K like in the year that it happened or maybe the year after?
Well, we didn't know, right? Like no one had any idea. Like we were fine. Because NNBC, I believe NNBC was always running a deficit where Finance Club had NNBC always had a surplus, and I think Finance Club maybe had a surplus. So we had our own budget, which we break even every single year. So it's always zero. So there was never a problem. No one's ever mentioned anything to us until we learned about it, and we went through all the reports. I actually personally went through all the historic report and matched all the budget, and then we realized otherwise we would have done this way longer. And when we brought it up, it was during the summer. It was August, and so it's been a while. And since then, we've been trying to get this, back on. Like if we knew, we had no idea. No one had any idea until NBC started going to Toronto and starting, have a big expense, or maybe Finance Club doesn't have that, surplus that they used to have. It's even one of those parties, but we had no idea. And no one's ever brought that up to us until literally in August. And then they brought me in and asked and clarify what's going on. And I looked through everything. And then we realized, and we brought it up to VP Finance immediately. And I think it got delayed because he resigned. And since then, we've always, it wasn't up to speed. It was dragged on quite a bit. But we brought this up and we tried everything we can since we found out. So
yeah.
All right.
Yeah, and I guess just one, wrapping up comment is just when we did fund that NIBC for $20,000, we kind of had it in our minds that we're kind of covering that deficit that did result from the 2014 year. So we in that kind of $20,000 funding request, we're trying to address that problem.
But he has said that we didn't specifically vocalize that to NIBC, so that's where the problem comes.
Yeah, I think if you guys essentially think, if you think about NIBC just by itself and you think they deserve 10 grand to run their investment banking conference for this year for your commerce students, if that's what you think, then the 10 grand, then that means the rest of the 10 grand is from PBCC. So as long as you guys, I think for you guys figure out what amount NIBC deserves to run their own conference, and then whatever remaining, or that'll be part of PBCC. You just gotta figure out. At the end of the day, it's going to be the 10 grand that CUS just didn't pay PBCC, and that goes to NIBC, and you just fund their current conference and whatever you think the value is.
Yeah.
Right.
So it's not like, and you guys just have to figure out the dollar. All we want to do is really repay back the money that was not ours.
Right. All right. So I think on that note, Jordan will wrap it up. We won't keep you anymore.
Yeah. Is there any? I want to also clarify. Is there any other questions and concerns?
It doesn't look like there's anybody raising their hands.
Okay.
So, if, like I said, if you're welcome to join on the live stream. I think it's on the CUS website, right?
It's on that Facebook.
It's on our Facebook page. So if you're interested, it's on our Facebook page. The link is there.
Okay, that sounds good.
All right. Thank you very much, Jordan, for taking the time. Obviously, it went on a little longer than it planned, but I think that's good just so that we can make our decision with as much information as possible.
Okay, thanks, guys.
Cool. Thanks very much.
Okay, bye.
Bye. Thank you, Vincent. So you're welcome to stay. You're welcome to go. Wow. So, welcome to the CUS Board of Directors. So on that note, guys, it's about 6 after 7. We can do one of two things. We can either take a break for about 5 minutes, or we can quickly finish the discussion with William and then take a break after that. Yeah. Thanks very much. So we'll give until, actually, who had a question?
That was my question.
Yes.
Is NIBC the one?
We're not going to comment on that. We won't comment on that just now. If that's okay. But Angela, you had one question. Did anybody else have any other questions for William? No. Okay. Go ahead, Angela.
My question
organically, yeah.
How do you ensure?
Like, what philosophical, what line would you draw between CS overstepping versus, like, if we want to get involved, to what point do you believe we can get involved in that? It doesn't affect the organic conversation.
Avoid getting very defensive. Like, the reality is, I think most people are going to have a positive outlook on undergraduate societies on Reddit. I think ultimately, like, there's more benefits than drawbacks. The reality is, I don't think the CUS is going to dominate conversation because users are very independent when they're online and within communities. Users are very committed to their own standpoints and committed to articulating those standpoints when they feel like that is the correct case. And in general, they won't. I don't think I've ever seen a case of like a conversation being dominated. Like I've seen like failing defenses and one person just won't give up. Not necessarily an applicable example here, but most what I'm trying to make a point here is that the reality of our community is that we're very open to that kind of conversation. We're very open to broadening that scope. And I don't think the CUS is going to dominate by any stretch of the means. I feel like if you really wanted to limit yourselves, you could limit yourselves to ways in which the CUS acts informative, thoughtful, like they promote kind of a certain kind of outlook. I feel like a lot of these things, like Sauder snake memes, for example, aren't really worth commenting on. I feel like having the CUS as a presence in the long run, not on these threads, but in general, will increase understanding and the sensitivity of these kinds of terms, of these kinds of animosities, of these kinds of majorities of scale.
Okay, does that answer your question, Angela? A little bit?
I kind of want to like hear like an example of what kind of either response or post movement, because I don't use Reddit. I'm unsure how that would sound like.
AMA was one of the suggestions.
And then like what about like a response to perhaps I don't know how.
Well, I mean, I don't recommend responding to like very, very angry posts. Just that doesn't even like that isn't really common like advice directed towards the CUS. It's just in general, like if someone is out to do bad, if someone is out to ruin your name, which I don't think I've ever seen a case of. I'm just saying that it happens in other communities on Reddit too. That it may not be worthwhile to engage. Where I feel the CUS could be best posed is to recognize that when students complain about like the building or something like that, the CUS is there to say, we'd be happy to address these concerns, to bring it on to like the building operations. Like if there's a concern about how a commerce kind of like course is scaled or its grading curve or something like that, it would be really cool to have someone from the CUS. Like I know this isn't organized the same as other undergraduate constituencies. You guys don't have a vice president.
Yes, we do.
Oh, we do. Okay. Well, not we, but like you guys do. I'm sorry, I don't know what goes on in the CUS. It would be really cool to have like Victor was your name, was it? No.
No. Sapno.
This is Victor. That's Sapno.
Anyways, go on.
It would be really cool to have you like jump in and say, yeah, we'd be happy to bring these concerns up to the faculty. Because I know a lot of VP, I don't know exactly the case for faculty, but most VP academics, I'm assuming you too, like do discuss and like consult with the faculty on courses that really need to be reworked in conjunction with like Senate and whatnot, like just in general. You do, I'm sure.
Anyways, so hopefully that answers your question a little bit, Angela. If Evan, do you have a question?
Yes, you talked about many sort of concerns that Sauder students have. How often do you see folks about this?
About Sauder students?
Yes, concerns they have about like courses or building with CUS.
Well, I can almost assure you that if you establish an official presence, that there will be more opportunities to go up. I feel like some people don't particularly complain or they don't articulate their compliments or feedback because they feel like there isn't a CUS presence. And how often do I see it right now? I do see it occasionally. I wouldn't say that I see it like nonstop, constant, as an inevitable kind of thing. I don't see negative posts about CUS often, but at the same time, I don't necessarily see much about, like, this isn't necessarily just about the CUS, but more so like the SolderCon with broader faculty in general tends to have more comments relating to it, like how courses are skilled. I do recall kind of like people criticizing how certain courses are like structured, like how ridiculous like exams are, how they're built, things like interviewing. I can't recall any exact examples off the top of my head.
All right.
I noticed that like 8% of students on UBC Reddit is sorted.
That's from the data from our census. We actually believe the number to be higher.
If you had to estimate, do you know how many people were sorted on Reddit on like an average monthly basis?
There is no possible way to give you an accurate figure, but if I had to guess, I'd say 600 to 1,400, anywhere around that number.
Thank you. Unfortunately, just for the sake of time and getting out of here before we're kicked out, we're going to close the discussion there. Thank you very much, William, for sticking around. Hopefully that was an entertaining enough discussion before that to keep you relatively entertained. Thank you. All right. And so with that, we move on to AMS representatives report. We'll get through to Commerce Person's report because I have nothing to report. So we'll finish Simran's and then take a break.
Okay, cool. So, yeah, 2 council meetings this month as per usual since our last meeting. The biggest things that we've discussed, a continuing theme has been the McKinnis to parkade. So we're making a new parkade behind the nest. And on council, we're just trying to we have an issue with the plan that's proposed because, I shouldn't say we, but we've been discussing the logistics of how cars are entering and exiting that parking. Some people think it's not safe. I would have to agree with them. And UBC, or sorry, the AMS is kind of going back and forth with UBC about that. So that's been a big goal for us this month. We had updated exec reports from our VPs for the AMS, which you guys can all access online. And yeah, welcome to the AMS.
Thank you, Simran. Nice and short. I like it. I have nothing to report since my last Senate meeting. I wasn't able to actually go to the last Senate meeting because of my body trying to kill me. Ombudsperson, if you'd like to make your report now before we take a break, we can, or we can take a break.
Sure, yeah, it'll be very brief. I actually think everything will be covered in other areas. So yeah, I don't really, do you guys have any questions?
Not a question for that?
I forgot something in my report.
We'll finish that up and then we'll come right back. If there's no questions for Maddie, we could consider that.
Yeah.
Perfect, thank you. Simran did have one more point to make.
Just quickly, this is pretty important. So we had the VP Finance report to us on our last board meeting. The AMS is doing extremely well on their spending, but that's just the second quarter. So yeah, we cut spending on a lot of areas. We hit a lot of targets. Currently are like running the profit, whatever. But like this is only the second quarter, so there's a lot to come. But that was really like the council was really happy to hear.
Awesome, thank you for that. Ending our reports on a good note.
Yeah.
Sorry. And then before we go into the executive reports, it is now 16 after 7. Can we please, would it be fair to say if we're back by 25 after?
Yeah.
So a 9-minute break.
Wait, why don't we just go to 20?
Just go to 20.
Is 4 minutes good enough for you guys? Okay, so please be back by 20 after. We'll reconvene then. Thank you.
Yeah.
really person, you got been told that amount of times, like, Zimmer, call him out.
We need Stanley here to call people out.
Been told that amount of times.
Okay, all right, please take your seats, guys. All right, first report, President's report.
Okay, so I've done a number of things since the last time we met. As always, doing a lot of things. As of today, I've completed my one-on-ones with today, yeah. Oh no. So one-on-ones with Andrew Brandon, but I also met with all the execs for their performance evals and some of the board members. If you haven't had your performance evaluation with a board member, then unfortunately, I don't think they'll be happy for a while because Kevin Mitt and I are both right now the president, so I'm not gonna be able to do them. And I think Juliana never set up schedules. I only got to go through some of you guys. I had rescheduled. Right. Anyway, so in the last time we met each other, board members, went to a Dean Student Advisory Council meeting. With me were Maddie and Jacob. It was a good meeting. We discussed like culture, what is good about Sauder and how to attract candidates, as well as some discussions mainly around the Dean and his strategic vision. Met with the BCC just to get updates. Sounds like their program is doing really well. In terms of like the new overhaul that like 202 has had. Linda, Linda messaged told me that now that there has been more people going into coaching, so that's really good to hear. I did my coffee chats for Community Pulse. I also met up with the endowment fund, met with Pam and the DAE, Aaron from the DAE about the COS endowment fund. Jacob, the endowment chair, was with me. He did a really good job. But yeah, we essentially found out that we have, well, he'll tell you a little bit more during the committee reports. But at the moment, the committee has not yet met, but we are excited to kind of tap into our savings account. I'll talk a little bit about the President's Advisory Board later. I also went to an orientation steering committee early on this month. So that was really interesting. Just had a lot of stats about and like the strategic vision for like Spark and Imagine Day, as well as a bunch of like onboarding things. I'm not sure if I ever told you guys, but from now on, instead of like domestic and international students, the university is targeting on-campus students and off-campus students, and that's how their accommodation and dialogue will kind of be reworked. So that's a big change there. There's going to be another President's Council meeting coming up. And then also, I think that is everything for now.
Thank you, Daphne.
Do you guys have any questions?
Yeah.
Usually questions are after.
Moving forward, guys, just for the rest of the execs, you guys have 3 minutes. 3. So, important stuff. Choose your words. All right, moving on to after the updates, correct?
No, it's
No, right after.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so what's happening with your orientation steering committee? Are you the only person with the seat?
Yeah, I'm the only person with the seat permit. So what happens there is that all the other undergraduate presidents and also Pam is there, and we kind of just sit. And last time it was just a plan on kind of like vision and like how Jumpstart did this year and how like they did a pilot year for Jumpstart for domestic students, how they might do it there. I think I wrote a document back when this happened and I sent it to you guys. But if you want, like I sent it in like the chat, and so it might be more update. Or if you want me to resend it, like just message on the general if this is something that you really want to see, and I'll see if I can dig it up. I don't remember where exactly I put those notes, but I'll try to find it for you. I definitely took notes though. But yeah, it was really informative general. I think they're gonna meet again. With more specific, but they are doing a lot of big changes. just like having different projects for all. Really cool. What else? Okay, cool.
Thank you. Moving on, VPA.
Yeah, not much has been happening with services. They're all wrapping up their one stuff. It's like CMP, they have the final examination sessions coming up soon, so they started their event. I was doing basically my performance evaluations with all the services. I got done with my last project with the CCC. Everything more or less went well with the evaluations that we investigated on services and HR forward. Yeah, I don't know if I updated you guys about the so I was probably doing exactly.
Yeah.
But yeah, just a few highlights. Those of you in academic committee caucus on December 8th, or those of you have not seen for people who can attend. A few of the things that you can expect is Sauder introducing a new minor program available to students. And then there's also going to be renumbering of courses 290, 291, and 292 to 190, 191, 192, which is the first year courses now. They used to be second year courses. A few of the stuff like that can come up with like other stuff in the caucus, but yeah, the faculty caucus is happening on December 8th, next Friday. It's at this Friday night. But yeah, just so you guys there. I met up with AMS, University Affairs Commissioner, so he works with the BP Academic AMS. So the AMS is doing campaigns, so I don't know how many of you guys have heard about the textbook group campaign that they were doing. And now they're doing this open educational resource listening tour, where they're going around interviewing professors about kind of knowing the reasons for using the textbooks that we use and if it's actually needed. And other kind of resources that they can switch to, and the CUS will be participating in this. And this is something, I'll be sending an email later on about this, but I might need help from either board or exec, maybe just another 2 or 3 people, wherein you guys will basically be involved in kind of actually going and interviewing the professor with the AMS, University Affairs Commissioner. They have all the questions prepared, and they will be scheduling the interviews with professors, so you don't actually have to do any of the logistical part. It's just that you're there as a CUS rep to kind of be that liaison between Sauder and the AMS, and since you've already taken Sauder courses, you have a better understanding than the AMS. So just for that, and these interviews will be happening most probably next term. I don't think they'll be happening this term since exam season is starting soon. But if you're interested, you can like either send me a Slack message. I'll actually send an email later on. But yeah, just kind of meeting up with professors and conducting a survey basically. But yeah, I think that's about it.
Any questions?
And EMS tutoring wrapped up today.
All right. Any questions? Thank you, Sat. VPX, not here. Is anybody going to report for him? No? Okay.
Have some general updates class and family. Seems like everything is going well. I heard that this year they're getting more at the CPA. Yeah, relationship has been really well, considering that it was essentially like non-existent last year. And they are going to continue working hard on the database as well as they were looking at creating a blacklist that we talked about during sponsorship, and so we're continuing to work on it. If you have any additional questions, definitely reach out to Stanley. He is going to be a little bit busy in December due to the West, but you can contact Albert or anyone that hopefully.
Thank you.
Finance, you can also skip over. We have a discussion.
Thank you. VPI. Time starts when you say your first word.
So I finished all my performance evals for my training last 2 today. Liam and Kelvin are still working on creating the new system for booking, so we're still on the old one, but I'm hoping that we have it implemented relatively soon. But having said that, Lauren is now officially taking over for Calvin. So Calvin has more time to do stuff for me now. New pool sticks have been purchased because someone end of term clubs roundtable will most likely happen on December 20th. If you want to know more about it, ask me later. After, like Daphne said, she had a meeting with Board Endowment Fund. We'll most likely implement weekly or bi-weekly cleaning from custodial staff as soon as we get that approved or we get permission. I just don't think I can officially email them yet until Daphne gives me the date. And I'll be meeting, me, Calvin, and Lauren will be meeting with Soccer Events team and facilities and Linda Tomasini, who's like director of soccer operations, on December 5th regarding AV tickets for events, but also facility requests from students.
Awesome. Yes, Daphne.
I wanted to clarify something. I think you said I don't have control over like all the weekly because of we'll get into it later. It's actually up to the
So yeah, when I get approval from that will probably start.
Awesome. Thank you, Phoebe.
Marketing.
VP Marketing.
So I finished all my performance evaluations a week or two ago. Most of my services are doing fairly well. There's a few issues I need to address. And the biggest thing on my plate was Winter Wonderland, which finally finished today. Overall engagement has been very good. For maybe coaches got roughly 250 people. CSS holding photo booths over 220. Sustainability Winter Wonderland had 230. This content by workshop at 40, and a holding care package at 250. So roughly we had a total engagement of over 1,100, which far surpassed our goals. Marketing data-wise, the combined reach of all 6 of our events was over 44,000, and total Snapchat views so far, not including series today, since I don't have data for that yet, is 11,500.
Great expansion.
Awesome. Thank you, Evan. And VP Engagement.
Hello. Yeah, so I went to a meeting on the new strategic vision for UBC Rec on behalf of Sutter Sports. That was really interesting. So it looks like Rec is going to be looking to support, they call them individual units like UBC or like Sutter Sports in the future. Branded Community Pulse, got 49 survey responses, 9 coffee chats signed up. We'll be looking to build out a community report based on that and some other data before our AGM, which is happening on January 10th. Mark your calendars. What time is it? January 10th. It's going to be in the evening.
We'll get back to you.
Yeah. No pictures of flight. Oh, well, you probably won't. But
Please Skype in from your flight.
So yeah, January 10th is our AGM. Doing performance reviews with all my services has been going well. Making some nice tweaks to how I work with HR. Kiwi's been doing great. They wrapped up with the Winter Wonderland thing. CCC is going to be doing some volunteer activities over December, which is awesome. Toys had their last event. FYC and Brand Night have hired their teams now, so they're fully operational. FYC just like did their team conventions last night. And yeah, CISA has also been doing some cool Wonderland stuff.
Thank you very much. Any questions? If not, thank you very much, execs. And thank you guys for respecting the time limit. We very much appreciate that. Speaking of which, we move on to committee reports. The chairs of the committees, again, 3 minutes. Who'd like to go first? Sure. Jacob Kim, please say your committee.
Sorry?
Please say your committee.
Okay, so with the endowment fund committee and the committee report.
Anyway,
Okay, yeah. Like,
Daphne, that's a. I think isn't that a Slack?
no, I'm just.
Isn't that a Slack thing?
You continue.
Sorry, just wait 1 sec.
yeah,
1 sec. Jacob, just 1 sec.
Guys, stop touching the minutes.
I'm not touching it.
Fucking do your job.
yeah.
Sorry, my bad.
Nah, that was warranted. Thank you, Phoebe. Natalie, you good? Okay, ready, Jacob? Go ahead.
Yeah, like you said, we met with Pam and the DAE to discover a few things we have around 4% of the $320-some dollars, $1,000 from the initial endowment. So we have about $12,000 somewhere around there that we were able to spend this year. So I think that he brought up that NPV that we could use this money towards the weekly or bi-weekly cleanings. Just the main issue with that is just like the endowment fund. It's kind of like we want to say that we use this money that this big sum invested for a big project and just like cleaning for the office. Is that really what we want to say we use the money? And, or I mean, yeah, the ladder demand. And then if we do, then that's fine. It's just a decision that the endowment fund committee has to make. So we will. I'll set like a when to meet pretty soon. I'm not sure if we'll do it before or after the final season, but the DAE said that they would get back to us with a date of when the endowment fund reports have to be in by. So hopefully before then, and then just kind of like see what we want to do with the money, or if we just want to reinvest it and then grow it for the next year.
Phoebe had a question.
Just a comment on that. I was hoping that the endowment fund would be just this year for the cleaning, and then for budgeting next year that we have a line item for it. Because our biggest issue that we didn't have the money for it was because we didn't have a line item for it. So hopefully, like for budgeting next year, that we would have the line for it, and then we wouldn't be dipping in emergency funds.
Thank you.
And to clarify a few things, after speaking with Pam, first of all, we can go into this. This is essentially the savings account, and so if we wanted to use it to fund repeat items, we are allowed to.
Okay.
There is no deadline for when we can. Last Pam and Aaron from the DAE made it clear that we can do it at any time, but it's best if we did it all at once. The time it takes to transfer money is like a week. The deadline that Jacob is talking about is like we haven't used this money and touched this money since its establishment in 2014. We were wondering if there's a deadline, accumulating like when we need to at least use some of the money for whatever reason. So just to clarify that, the point on the deadline. But yeah, Pat is the one who passes through. She made clear that we do that.
Chris.
Is it up to the sole discretion of the endowment committee to decide where this goes, or does the endowment just maybe decide where it goes in the report?
I'm pretty sure that we decides on it, creates a report, sends it to Pam, and then Pam will either accept or reject it. If she accepts it, it'll go to the school, and then the university will kind of transfer it. Kind of the process that we're managing.
And to comment on Chris's point, I think he's asking like, should the board need to kind of ratify the decision and formalize things that we do budgeting? Yeah, we don't have any due process because no one's touched the endowment fund report. So if policy committee or you guys, like I guess not policy committee, sorry, if the board feels more comfortable that the committee itself comes to present before they give the report, please let it be known. Otherwise, I do not believe there are steps that the committee might just go straight to
Okay, thank you. Next committee we have to report on. AJ, can you just state your committee for Natalie?
Yeah, so the IT steering committee, we met last week. It was we had a good discussion with Liam and everyone there in terms of where we want to see IT and CUS working together and how we can make lives easier. Something that came up was how we can kind of get feedback from the students as well, and the process that was kind of pitched was through a hackathon. Essentially bringing up problems that the CUS might have or any opportunities that we can use where we can use IT and where we can kind of work with students in computer science so we get that development end as well. Right now it's just run by Bob and Liam, and there's a lot of things that I guess they need to take care of, but it would be really helpful if we had more of a development side to the team as well. So it's more than just kind of putting out fires that arise, and it's more about thinking proactively on how we can use IT to make our day-to-day lives easier. One of the ideas that came up was also somewhat like putting like a tracker on like reimbursements. So like when you submit a reimbursement and kind of on the website you can track like okay like what process it's in. So not Matthew is then bombarded with getting like a lot of emails as to where my reimbursement is if the process is with the AMS, right? And so something like that was floated, automating a lot of processes that we might have, but That will require some time. Liam would like to sit down with some of the VPs just to see what your pain points are and where we can take IT with, where we can kind of use IT to make your lives easier. We can also get feedback from the students and build better partnerships with computer science, because a lot of CS students need projects on their resumes, and we think that'll be a good partnership where we can kind of get them to do a lot of the development work for us and with us, and we can also do the strategic planning side to it. Victor brought up that 436 is somewhat of a course that looks into figuring out the project management side of the business and not quite the execution, and that's where the partnership might also work out. So it was a very strategic, it was a very strategy-heavy meeting in terms of we looked at what the code was. We still need to do a lot of research and work on the logistics of a lot of things, but that was generally the gist of it. We spoke about where we want to see IT headed. Leo understands that it might, given that we only have 4 months left, it might not be the best. Again, not everything will get executed, but it is a long-term play, and that's essentially.
If any questions, if we reach out to AJ and if you're interested in sitting in as a guest or such to an IT steering committee, and are interested in perhaps whether it's doing hackathons or just helping out IT processes, please reach out to AJ.
Thanks, guys. We have a brief amount of time for any questions, if there are some. Seeing none, is there another committee report to be made? Thank you, Chris.
Hello, I'm from Policy Committee.
What?
From Liver. Poco. Great. So yeah, we met back in October to talk over some procedural changes with our code that I'll be presenting to you later tonight in discussion. Yeah, I was like, do I have to do that now? Yeah, and so that's good. I also met with the AMS a couple of weeks ago to talk about some like pretty radical changes I might want to propose to the policy. Basically, like scrapping the idea of having a constitution and code of procedures and putting everything into combined documents. And so I was just concerned because like no other undergraduate society does that. They said AMS doesn't really care what our constitution looks like. So technically we can do it. They gave me some good feedback on it though, so I'm gonna be looking into that. Policy committee is kind of, I hope, kind of in the tail end of wrapping up our more procedural changes that we want to make, and moving towards getting in the big changes before elections in January. We can have a referendum on our constitution then. And yeah, it should be a fun, wild time. If anybody has any questions.
We have a minute, 40 seconds if you guys want any questions. None, seeing none, thank you, Chris. We look forward to the discussion.
I can do
SBF.
So we had our first, and I have some changes for policy. Basically the topics that we discussed, we're reviewing the applications all in one date. We're gonna create a template for the application so we can judge it better, and also we're gonna have like a set of rules. So like right off the bat, we can like cut out donations. We can cut out like organizations who are running a surplus, stuff like that. And then also like the two changes that we want is that leftover money in term 1 will be reallocated to term 2, and then also a board will make the decisions for all of the SPF applications because they were voted in by the people, so it's best to have them make the decisions on how this money is spent. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll bring up those policy changes.
Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you, Natalie. Any questions for SBF? Yes? Oh, okay. Don't scare me like that. I thought we had a question. Yes, so committee conference affiliate? Conference affiliation committee.
Sorry, that's you.
My conference affiliation? Chair?
Yeah, you're the conference affiliation. Like ad hoc committee. Figure it out. Anyway,
We haven't met.
I am the chairperson for Close Review, so no updates. And building users, basically we had a meeting a week ago, and I'm gonna send out a event to me later this month so that we have a meeting in January before the meeting with like events, not events, building like everyone else Sauter, in February. Yeah, that's it.
February 6th.
Also, I'm not actually chair for building users, but we're gonna.
February 6th.
Yeah, so I'm hoping to set a meeting with like just CUS
Cool.
building users in January, so that we talk about the things that we have to decide.
Thank you. Oh, Budget Committee.
So maybe staff meeting, there should be no updates.
No updates. Awards Committee. I'm assuming no updates.
Not an awards committee. Vivian and.
It's Christy, isn't it?
Who are in my service, like, but I don't know what's going
So you know what that sounds like? No updates?
on. Running a committee, let them know.
Yes.
I was tempted to tell them, but it was like 2 days before.
All right.
I mean, some of you guys are in awards, if you guys. I don't know.
Maybe should we talk about just some of the.
Oh.
That's an executive.
No, it's not.
Yeah, we can bring it up.
I don't know if your discussion is sure.
Yeah, so.
Time's ticking.
Before we continue. You were there. Yeah.
Let's do the updates.
Sorry.
Yeah.
It is meeting.
I think they have to be like, just give a general
Yeah.
disclosure. Yeah.
See, now you have 233.
Okay. Yeah, so just an update from the awards committee. So we have been, evaluating events, and I think you just reached out as well and said that they need more people to fill those. So luckily, because Sanjay has recently joined, so that works out because we've got someone to help with those extra events. As well, eProjects had some concerns regarding two of the evaluators that were sent to their event. They said that there were just some things happening that were a bit unprofessional, and there were some concerns that were raised regarding like, the fairness of the evaluation. So in response to that, we have met with and kind of talked through this with the evaluators, and we're going to discard that evaluator's score sheet for that particular event, and we've offered to maybe evaluate another event in that one's stead. But yeah, so it's being handled directly by Christy.
Thank you. Sorry, that was not to you, that was to Angela. Yes, you can. Thank you, Nadia. Appreciate that. Okay, that looks like that is it from awards committee reports. Thank you to all the chairs. Section J, amendments to and approval of minutes.
Isn't there an academic?
Is there an academic committee?
Yeah. No updates, but like just the caucus is happening next week, so probably have something up.
Thank you. Cool. Any other committees that are existing that I'm the chair of? No? Cool. All right, moving on. Section J, amendments to and the approval of minutes. The minutes from the last meeting, I believe, were circulated, and they're also available online. Hopefully, if there's any issues with that, we've raised them. Are there any issues with the previous minutes? Seeing none, can I please get a mover to accept the meeting minutes? Thank you, Jacob. Seconder, Carissa. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Business arriving from the Service Council. Is there any business arising from the Service Council? Seeing none. Thank you. Business arising from the Executive Council that we will not be covering in discussion or have not already covered. Seeing none. Thank you. Business arising from the committees that we've already discussed. I believe any of business that's arising from those committees is being addressed in our discussion items. So unless there's anything else. Seeing none. Any other business that any board or exec member would like to bring up to the board of directors? Seeing none, we're going to have a 2-minute break. Just before we get into, actually, okay, it's 5:02. We're going to have a 5-minute, actual 5-minute break now. So if you guys need like a washroom break or a water break before we get into the discussion items, please go now. Please be back in 5 minutes for 8 o'clock. Evan, how do I do this? I'm over here, by the way, for the one person watching.
One person watching.
Gotcha. All right, ladies and gentlemen, we are back in. You guys can speak, please.
I'm gonna order this right now.
Yeah, it's fine. No.
Well, I need
Oh, yeah. Okay. Everybody, could we just bring it back, please?
Wait, so are we getting it for everyone or just people who are paying?
I'm just gonna say right now, we're okay.
Ask people who are paying.
You can get reimbursed from the CUS.
Okay,
You can, I don't give, I'm just asking.
one more.
Anyway,
Why don't you decide?
guys, we are live. So, discussion item number 1, PVCC vote and discussion.
Should we set like 30-minute time limit for each
So
thing and then we can.
that's one thing we could do. The other thing is, remember guys, for each of these discussion items, each of you has an opportunity to speak twice if you so wish, and each time you speak, you get a maximum of 2 minutes to ask a question or make a comment or add to the discussion. Is that understood by everybody? Accepted by everybody? Cool. Swag. Awesome. Okay. I don't know why I'm getting like stockily smiled at, but it's fine. It's fine. It's fine. Anyways, so section number 1, PVCC decision. Who would like to kick us off? And I will be timing you. And then abruptly shutting down your topic or your conversation piece after 2 minutes. Yes, Daphne.
I wanted to start by saying that for me and all the other executives, I think it's really frustrating because they are, after all, appealing our decision. So it'd be best if the board, you guys take your discussion onto the actual physical realm. So you guys have a lot about your presentation. I just like discussion here. Those are all my words. You can ask me for any clarification, but I would like to not go too into it, and I would ask the others for that too. Once again, we were the ones who decided not to.
Thank you. And if you wish to speak, please just wave down Angela because she's the one who puts together our speakers list. Thank you very much. All right. Who'd like to go? AJ.
Okay, so my understanding was that the reason we had that emergency funding for NIBC, the 20K, was because they didn't have money. And that they didn't have money because PVCC spent it. So where I'm sitting, if I understand this correctly, we have more than given NIBC what we've made up for what PVC, for the mistake that happened 3 years ago. Right? And so personally, I'm not too sure why they're the one, why NIBC is going after PVCC for it. We've given them the money and they came to us because they had a mistake. Yeah, they needed, like they applied for SBF and that's a different conversation, but the 20K that was given to them was because we were bailing them out for mistakes that happened. And yes, they didn't get CUS money, so I get that point. But, sorry, I clarify, PVCC did get the CUS money back in 2014, and that kind of that chain reaction is what kind of caused them to require the emergency funding. So I get that. But from my point of view, I think we've given back the mistake that it has for now. And I don't see why we need to correct the mistake without correct it in a way. It might not have been explained clearly. I think that's where the communication is where it's at fault, but I don't think money is the issue right now. I think we need to just communicate that we bailed you out and this was the reason, so there's no point to NIBC, like that there's no point for them to go to PVCC for this. That to me is where the matter ends. So has any other viewpoints on that?
So my question then, AJ, would be the 20K that we've given to NIBC that we approved in a previous meeting. Even though they asked for 30K, we only give them 20. Would you recommend then to explicitly tell NIBC 9,800 money is what PVCC owes you, and the rest you can use to your conference? Is that what you're suggesting? Because when you say why are we correcting a thing we've already corrected? I'm assuming you mean we've already given them this 20,000. Portion of that is to PVCC, but we just didn't articulate that correctly. Is that what you're saying?
Yes. So I mean, if you need $30,000 as an emergency, that to me just tells me that you have poor management skills in terms of managing your finance, right? 30,000 is a lot for an emergency. The 10 I understand, that's because you spent money that you thought you had but you didn't, and now yeah, that's what caused you to rip through all your books and try and figure out where it came from. So if we are bailing you out in terms of emergency, for me, the way I see it, it's because of that error, and we've more than made up for that error. So yeah, I would explicitly like to tell NIBC that, hey, listen, you got the money as a part of that emergency, and this is like, and it was to make up for the mistakes that happened then, and whatever. Right? That's how I see it. I could be wrong.
And since that was an answer to my question, you still have another 2 minutes later on if you feel so. Next on the list I see is Victor.
Oh, yeah, I guess when you asked your question, that kind of addressed but yeah, and I think that really kind of addresses what the issue that Jordan has. Like, as long as we acknowledge that that 9,000, is going back to pay back the PBCC kind of something. I think that's kind of all. But you said you'd find that kind of aspect as well. So I think that would kind of solve problems on both sides. But so yeah, I think that I agree with AJ that we definitely feel like paid back that kind of amount and more. And also further on, even if that were the case, I feel like the just the due to the time relevancy of the years that's passed is a little bit too far gone to through such a hard situation. So yeah.
Okay. Thank you. I believe. Carissa.
Yeah, I agree with AJ and Victor. Just hearing Jordan talk, I felt like there was just a lack of communication between NIBC and PCC. Like Jordan didn't even know about the $20,000. So maybe he's getting heat from NIBC about the 10,000 when we've already paid it back. So I think we've already resolved the issue, and maybe just, I don't know, communicating that we did and that $20,000 was intended to dig out NIBC from the situation that was created by not providing the original 10,000 PBC.
Okay, thank you, Carissa. And just before you go, Sapno, if it's okay, I don't. When we approved this $20,000 in our previous board meeting, at that time, were we aware of this situation? That this was the specific incident that PBCC owed? Like, that this incident was the cause of NIBC needing that money? Were we aware of that?
We have to go back to the minutes to get the exact repetition, but I believe we did know that the situation with NIBC arose due to the account.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why during our funding meeting, I believe we wrote that NIBC money would be contingent on that they would separate themselves and their account from PBC. But I can't remember that we knew about this. But I do believe that we had a really thorough discussion on it, that someone would need to refer back to some look at the minutes and see. I think this meeting happened near the beginning. It happened at the same meeting where Andrew.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. All right, Sapno.
Yeah, I think AJ, what you said makes sense, but the only problem is that NIBC audited this week, I think, something, so they must have already spent the money on it. So I was just thinking in terms of next steps. If we had to go back to NIBC and be like, they did the $20,000, and out of that, 10,000 belongs to the money that we actually owed you, but they'd be like, oh no, but we spent 20,000 on other content stuff. So how can we possibly get a resolve the issue, since we don't really have anything with the money that NIBC spends? So just a consideration to what we're saying.
Yeah, you're not going to waste your 2 minutes on this. You can answer that.
Okay, so then if that's the case, then are we setting precedents for allowing people to spend money before they have it? Because what if they're spending $20,000, that's fine, right? But what they're arguing, or what their what their issue is with PVCC is now they're asking for 29,000 whatever, right? Because if they only needed 20K or whatever, they would be okay with it, 20,000 you've given them, right? So if we go back to them, like what you're saying is we're technically going back to them retroactively, right? Which to me doesn't make any sense. Are we allowing services and clubs to then spend money that they don't have or that aren't 100% committed to by allowing this to happen? So if we go back to them now and we were like, hey, by the way, the 20K was, from the a part of it, the $9,980 was the part PVCC owed you. That should make sense because they had $20,000 to spend, right? Or did they, in case of emergency where they needed the money, did they then plan for 30,000 and now they're going after, I believe Jordan used the word harassing PVCC. Are they harassing them for the $9,000 that they didn't have to spend, but they did it anyway? And is that the tone you want to set in terms of allowing clubs, services, conferences to spend money and go after other clubs and services, or even us, for saying that, oh, we thought we had the money, so we spent it? Because then if we continuously do that, then what's the point of having meetings and committees? Might as well let people spend whatever money.
Okay. Thank you. Jacob.
I think so. We do in two ways of doing this. We could tell PVCC the latest message that we gave them for them coming here to NIBC, or we could just directly go to NIBC ourselves. Problem is so back to AJ's point, if they got the $20,000 from us, and even though we told them that the 9,000 was being repaid from PVCC, they still wanted PVCC to repay them the money still, so they're expecting the $30,000. If they did go over and they expected the money, there's still it's going to be a deficit within the accounts of $9,000. Yeah, I think we really need to just check with NIBC to see where they're sitting at.
Thank you. Angela.
Yeah.
Okay.
My response to Jacob is that Nadia and Angela, it says here that our whole motion fund NIBC is to fund them $20,000 to help NIBC recover lost income. NIBC the set list of provisions. Yeah, and so it does seem like we didn't know the exact number that was owed, including marks from PVCC to NIBC, but we funded them with recovering their lost funds. And there are more details. Yeah, because I think Maddie's supposed to be from Natalie or Matt. Yeah, that's what we've said. So the motion is also no through our minutes, but maybe there is a need for us to re-clarify why we spent it. Yeah.
Thank you. Yes, Angela.
So my point is that my biggest issue with this 9,180 is that while I do believe that COCO should be accountable to try to add value to students who programs for many years, and that's ultimately our mission as CUS, I believe that since this money, majority of students of this money directly is going to NBC and not PVCC, this money wouldn't be spending any additional, no 73 students are going to PVCC because of this 9,780. It would not at the attending a conference would not otherwise not be able to attend value. And because of this, like, value would be added because of this money. I believe this money should not be given, and it should not be given, and that it would be much better used in other areas. That's my thoughts.
Thank you. Sapna, you're next on the list.
I just had a question. I don't know who has the best answer for this, but when we set contingencies for conferences, who actually makes sure that those contingencies are met? And is the money kind of dispersed in a timely manner? So, like, one of the contingencies is that they need to have a separate bank account by May 2018, but NIBC is already over, and I don't know if they'll wait till May 2018 to actually receive the money from the US. So I would have hoped that the VP Finance is here to answer the question, but since he's not here, I don't know, does anyone else know what, because the services they pay and then they get reimbursed, but if the conference is the conference.
I think this highlights a gap that we have in our current sponsorship policy. We have plenty of policies on reimbursement, and there's actually things to cover like liability outside of a year for reimbursement. In my opinion, as policy chair, I think those kind of rules should be applied to all money that we give out, and especially for situations like this where we're giving money to an outside organization that isn't affiliated with the AMS. We should have a contract that we get the AMS to sign, and we get them to sign, so there's like something binding. We don't get into these types of like, is this an actual contract or not? And so to, I guess, to answer your question, there is like this gap in what happens after we set these conditions, who's responsible for that. That's something I'm hoping SPF committee.
I don't know if it's already given up to an IBC or is it still in the process, but
I do like have like some idea, but at the time of writing this contingency, it was Andrew that was still in the position. So we would need to go back and like ask Andrew and all that. I think I could do that.
yeah, because the thing is, he mentioned in his conversation that the reason why NIBC and PBCC had a shared bank account with CFA because only FA had the authority to have a bank account with it. And so then one of our contingencies that we gave them was to have a separate bank account that's not associated with PBCFA, but if they actually come process that with the AMS, then I can see this is something to
Thank you, Satnam. Next up is me. Just to prove that, geez, I'm giving myself 2 minutes as well. Just from my perspective, the way I'm looking at this is that even though we're a different generation of board, we are still the CUS, and the point was brought up. We're one organization, and there's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. We screwed up. They didn't receive the money they were promised, and so they had to dip into NIBC's funds. NIBC then came to us requesting money to, make up for those lack of funds. There's an emergency, and so they needed more money. We gave them that 20K on the understanding that that 20K was going to cover the expenses that they had not foreseen, which included this $9,780 that PVCC had to use that they did not receive from the CUS. So at the end of the day, the CUS is responsible for this situation by not providing them the funds that we said we were going to. However, what can we do now to resolve that? Like AJ said, like a few people have said, we've already given NIBC X amount of money to refund that $9,780. So that is taken care of. We just need to articulate that to NIBC and to PVCC and say, listen, we've given this money. We've not made it clear, but we expressed that a portion of it, well, all of this money was going to cover unforeseen expenses. So it's between you guys. We've given them that money. However, what I think is important is to recognize that we are the ones who are at fault here originally. And so when we articulate this, that we gave a portion of this money to cover this expense, that we say, yeah, it's our bad. And hopefully this now resolves it. So I think we need to take responsibility for what we did wrong. But at the end of the day, what I'm getting from the consensus here is that we've already solved the problem, or at least we think we have. So that's my perspective on it.
I would like to clarify what Michael said about, I'm on the speakers list.
Okay.
So to comment or like clarify what Michael said, when you said we made a mistake and that we are trying to hold up to like whatever word we had stated, I would like to bring up the fact that yes, board passed this motion with contingencies that exec council set, and from my understanding, exec council never set these contingencies. So in that fact, in my personal opinion, that this was never like a set agreement yet because that agreement was never fully fleshed out. But that would be the exec council's fault for not going back on these contingencies, but board never reminded them. UCC never reminded them. So in that state, I wouldn't say it's just CUS's fault.
So you can see what's going on.
Yes, sorry. But I just like to clarify that like it's not like they fulfilled all these contingencies that we set and then we're just not getting money. It's the fact that there were no contingencies set, but board passed it on that basis. Yes. Yeah. According to the
Also, we have to consider that this is according to the publishment, because there could have been a meeting in between that we have no record of, because our knowledge is just based off of whatever they publish on the website. But we know, like from the past, like I know Angela Lee from last year has a bunch of minutes she finished but never posted on the website. So we can't be 100% sure that there wasn't another like executive meeting in between the time that we saw the published minutes, because that one was from January and the board meeting was sometime in December. So it's unlikely that there was another one in between, but it's possible. So I think we should double check on that, because I know when he sent over the contract, AMS had signed off on it and there were some terms listed, but we have like no physical record.
Is there another place where you can check? That's about the website.
I checked the internal, but it's not like it's just.
Thank you, Natalie. And this is we have 3 more names on the speakers list. This will be a last call for speakers. So if you, you're on there. I have AJ and Sapna. So if there's anybody else who would like to speak on this issue, please speak now or forever hold your peace. Seeing none, AJ and Sap, you guys each have 2 minutes.
So just to clarify a few things, so I agree that the CUS made a mistake when we didn't fund the promised amount. Again, there would have been contingencies that may or may not have been met. That's not something I'm bringing up. But what Jordan did say was that this was more of a control and an accounting issue where PBCC thought they got the money, they never told PBCFA. So I think that's more of a communication issue on their end. Like, how do you expect FA to just assume that you're going to be getting money, right? So if you're going to get sponsorships, that's something I guess they should all kind of communicate about. Like, hey, I'm expecting a check for this amount. Like, yeah, it's going to spam you, but at the end of the day, like, you need to keep track of where the money's coming from. If everyone just assumed that, oh, this is my money, then we'd have these issues every day, right? So that's, I think, more of a control issue that needs to be dealt on, I guess, a conference or club level. I think they need to have that discussion on their own. So in that case, like, allocation went on. So I wouldn't say this US is 100% at fault. Yeah, we made a mistake when, we didn't, maybe because the weren't met, but again, that depends on what the minutes said. And so I'm not going to deny it, but at the same time, I think it's more that it's a broader issue. It's not just us in terms of not allocating the funds. If you had a controls issue, why is it coming up 3 years later? There should be something that should be looked at, I guess, at the end of the year, right? Yeah, if you run surpluses and deficits every year and you're like, okay, this is a common thing, that to me doesn't make any sense, because at the end of the day, you should be balancing your books in terms of this is what we were owed, this is how much we spent, this is what we actually ended up getting, right? So that's something that I'm not sure like which one of the execs or the portfolios kind of has to deal with in terms of like the clubs and conferences and stuff. But at the end of the day, like basic accounting tells you need to balance your books at the end of the year, right? 3 years later, we're having to deal with this. That to me doesn't make any sense. And personally, I think, just to look at the meeting, the minutes that where they requested, NIBC requested 30,000. Originally, they were going to ask for 20, and they said they need to increase it by 10 because of the issues made by PBC, because the issues that would arise due to PBCC. So a potential issue could have been, a potential error on our part could have been that when we approved the 20, they thought they're not getting the 10 for PBCC. So I think it's more of a communication issue, whereas we saw it as bailing them out for the situation that happened. So I think my biggest resolution would be to kind of communicate that with NIBC, going like, hey, the 10,200 or 100, whatever the number was because of the SPF funding that we approved, and the other portion was because of the PCC. That's how I see it. That's my.
Thank you. Sapna.
Yeah, from what I'm hearing, I don't think anyone's on board with like funding PCC. But what I'm afraid of is, what if we go back and yeah,
You're good.
Yeah. So what I'm afraid of is like if we go back to an IBC right now after this board meeting without approving anything, or we want to do 20K, and part of that money belongs to the entire years. What happened between you and PBCC and IBC goes like, oh, like you don't really have a say on what we do, and like, like we've already spent the money, and they'll still be harassing PBCC after this. So how do we kind of control or mitigate that situation and not let PBCC come back to us for the next board meeting? Like, oh, they've not stopped harassing us. We still have a contract. Like you still promised us to pay this much back in 2014, and you haven't kind of fulfilled. I'm just concerned about those things because they still have written proof that we agreed to pay that much, and it will only stop if an IBC stops asking them, and that will stop if an IBC is on board with what we're saying right now. So the entire thing kind of ties back to an IBC, and if you're voting on something right now, I'd see it continue based on
I saw Jacob and I did see AJ.
I just want to kind of like a very simple mitigation could be looking at their funding for next year, because that is something that PBCC brought up. Is like, if you don't you can't give the 10, you're going to take the 5 and 5 or whatever. So if NIBC needs the money because they spent something they thought they had but they didn't, I would not more than okay, but a potential solution could be that we give them the 10K or whatever they need this year, but that's just money they're taking out of the next year's budget. So let's see what we do.
So going forward, once we vote on the motion that we have in front of us, basically whether or not to uphold the appeal or to overturn the decision of the executive on the appeal, once we voted on that, you could put that forward as an action item and a motion that we could vote on then. Jacob, I saw you.
I think the biggest thing for that, and IBC not harassing them anymore, is like what Michael said, like just give them a clear message of what we funded and the reason behind why. And if they try and harass them, they go back to that message that we delivered to them, and to be like, CUS like straight up said that the funding included missing costs that you guys owed. So they can't really like demand anything else. Because we all clarify that in the communication. So communication is the biggest thing we do.
Yeah, and I think I'm going to just rebuttal on that. I think the biggest thing with that is that we have a responsibility as a CUS not to necessarily micromanage our services and clubs, but to look out for them. And I think that in this situation, like the situation that Jacob mentioned and AJ said, where if we just clearly communicated to NIBC that that $20,000 we gave them was to part of that was to cover the $9,000 that PBCC owed, and they had a problem with that, that then becomes a problem with us and not a problem with PBCC. So that they're no longer entitled to harass PBCC because we paid them back. And if they have a problem with that, then they can come to us, not PBCC. And I think that's responsibility that we have to take care of the people that are, under our umbrella as a CUS. I did see Chris's hand, so I'll give you. Yes.
They are not under the CUS.
PBCC is.
They're not even AMS.
But they receive our funding.
They receive our
Okay, so
just to clarify.
Thank you for that. That is an important clarification that they're not actually affiliated with us. But I think that any time the CUS decides to sponsor or put money or invest in a service and club, we have a responsibility to make sure that that kind of organization is using our funds correctly, but is or running correctly, running efficiently, using our money. So since I had called for other speakers and saw none at the time, I'll consider discussion on this topic closed. So with that, the motion that we have before us is to uphold or overturn the executive's decision to not fund the $9,780. And to clarify, that $9,780 would be money that we are freshly giving to them, that we are taking out of some emergency fund somewhere and giving to them in addition to that $20,000 we've already given to NIBC. So if you are of the opinion that you do not want to give that extra money, your vote will be in the positive to this motion. So the motion is going to be, sorry,
I feel like maybe the motion at first should just strictly be, are we going to uphold the executive decision or exactly what the execs initially motion?
Break it up into two. Do we uphold exec, yes or no?
Yeah, and then
We
from
can
there.
communicate what the next step.
Yeah.
Well, that is exactly what we were going to do. We were just going to have a vote on do we
Okay.
uphold the executive decision. But I'm just saying that if you agree with upholding the executive decision, you will vote yes. So it might sound like you're saying yes, you want to give them the money, but that's not what we're saying. You're saying yes, we are listening to the exec and not giving them money. Cool? All right. So is there an actual articulated motion that we have?
We can find a motion from meeting minutes.
Okay, so just briefly, we have the motion in front of us. Motion to uphold the executive council's decision to not fund the $9,780 to PVCC. Thank you, Angela. So moved. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Victor. All those in favor of upholding the executive council's decision, please raise your hand and say aye.
Aye.
Can we keep them up so that Natalie can actually record the vote?
Snap is proxy.
Simon voted. Simon voted. And AJ voted.
Anybody else?
Is there, yes, like Natalie said very eloquently, is there any opposed to the motion? Any abstentions? Daphne? You don't have to say. All right, so the motion passes. We are withholding the funding. AJ, would you like to articulate any of the action items that you thought we should move forward with? Anybody else? If you guys have an action item that you'd like to see acted on, now is your time to speak. There's no speaking limit. So what I was getting from the conversation is that we want to clearly communicate to NIBC that the $20,000 we gave them was supposed to cover the $9,000 deficit that was caused by PVCC. Is that correct? Am I correct in that? All right. Is there any? Yes, Maddie.
I guess we do have to be really careful with the way that we word that, because obviously when we made that decision, our intention wasn't to cover that exact expense. That at the time we didn't realize we had failed to fund. So, but I think it would be very valid to go to NIBC and say this funding was intended to cover that deficit. It was like the money we needed in lieu of that funding that you didn't get. Yeah, and just sort of explaining that situation.
Yeah.
But yeah, I do just have to be really careful about how we put that forward.
I agree. I saw AJ and Sam.
So just to clarify, they didn't know that it was the 9,500, but they knew it was around 10,000. That's what they requested.
From my understanding, this is just an interpretation of it. It seems like they knew because they were in conversation with PVCC about, hey, we need this money. So I believe, from my understanding, they knew it was $9,780, and so they requested just $10,000 just to kind of round it up.
I'm saying like when we want to word it, like the fact that if you want to word it, like the 10K that you asked for emergencies.
Yeah, of that $20,000, this is how it was split up. That's what you're saying? Okay, Satnam?
Yeah, I had a question for Maddie. So when we communicated to NIBC back this summer, when this happened, that we're running it, we explicitly tell them that part of this money is for the PVCC.
We said to cover, the exact wording was, to cover losses, help NIBC recover lost expenses, and that was to help,
lost expenses from PVCC.
Just lost expenses.
This is lost expenses.
Yeah, because at the time, that was why they had put forth that funding request. or the additional funding, I guess. But and so the reason that we granted that funding was to help NIBC recover lost expenses, which they had mentioned when they presented, was because of PPCC and that understanding.
As long as they can't like argue back.
Yeah.
You know, at the time that we promised PVC the money.
No.
We know what that means.
I don't have a question, and it's not really relevant to this, but it's an update on the financial situation regarding whether or not we paid out this earlier. Would you like me to talk about it?
Is the answer yes or no? Did we?
Intel sent a journal voucher with the account code and either in September and October. And yeah, it's essentially yes. Yeah, NIBC should have already gotten the money.
So.
Can I add a discussion?
Yeah, we can motion to add
Let's finish this.
Well, so basically, based off that information, there is nothing we can do at this point because the money's already been spent. But what we can say, and this kind of goes back to my point of they can have a problem with us, not PVCC, in the sense that since they already spent that 20K, there's nothing more we can do unless we decide that let's just give them $9,780, which we just voted down. But what we can do at this point is say, hey, that $20,000 that we gave you, that you just spent, $9,780 of that was to cover PVCC's expenses to you. So now that is done with. And if you have a problem with that, it's now a problem with us, not PVCC. Their books are clean. The way I could see moving forward.
But I guess we don't really have that. Like they're both external organizations. So I guess I don't know if we really have that role or authority that, because what happened is ultimately between them. Yeah.
The thing is, their accounts are controlled by UBCFA, which I understand. Is that one of us? That's not one of us either.
It's an AMS club, but we have nothing.
Okay.
We have like.
Well, the thing is, I agree but disagree in the sense that if we tell them that $20,000, $9,780 of it was to cover that money, and we said in the motion that we sent to you that this $20,000 is to cover your lost expenses, then we are saying PVCC's books, like they owe you nothing, and we've done our job.
Right, but I do think that we kind of have to approach that as because it is not a typical, not like a very orthodox or official way to go about something like that, like giving money a little bit here that kind of covers a deficit there. If you know what I mean, I think we probably have to. I don't think we can assert ourselves as this is now come through us. I know that PVCC has a debt to you, but just pretend they don't and just come to us now. I think we need to phrase it more as how can we together kind of work through this? We did fund you this because of this, this other thing. Maybe can we, let's see another way that we can work this out, and hopefully that can settle that.
Although they wouldn't be pretending they were not owing anymore because they were given that money, and so they didn't.
But not under those explicit, not to cover. They were still owed that money from PVCC. We just happened to give the money specifically to help them cover the expenses as a result of the money still owed to them.
Yeah. Okay. See no problem with that.
Sorry, I'm trying to understand what.
Yeah, when we're
Can you speak up?
emergency. We didn't know that these emergency funds were the result of PVCC. So that's kind of what we're.
Okay, so I get what you're trying to.
Louder.
I get what point you're trying to make in that regard. But if you look at the motion, it says we're covering them for lost expenses and not essentially giving them SPF funding. Right? And so.
It was from It was from the SPF.
It was from the SPF. I get that. But there is in our. Yeah, so it comes back to the whole communication thing. We failed to communicate to them exactly why they were getting the money. Right? The way I assume the way we saw it was PVCC took money that they thought was theirs, but we didn't provide it, and now they're facing a debt. Now they have a problem that they need to deal with, right? And so, what in our minds, for us, we were clearing that issue for them, right? But when they got the 20,000, they were assuming that it's the 20,000 that they were originally requesting, and the extra 10,000 that they wanted to cover PVCCs wasn't given to them. So I think that was our mistake. And I think that's something that we should have clarified, but we still can in that regard. But it's just a matter of communicating that more effectively.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is at the time, we didn't know that that money was lost on account of our mistake. And it wasn't trying to explicitly compensate for something that we had done in the past. We didn't know about that at the time.
I agree, but we were compensating for PVCC dipping into the fund. Yes?
Yes.
The fact that PVCC did it was our fault. That's two different equations that we're looking at, right? Because what we're covering for the 10K was the fact that PVCC dipped into their account, or at least they thought the money was theirs. It's a common account. So we covered that for them. Yeah, we didn't know what the issue was, but in our minds, we were still covering for PVCC, right? And in doing so, we've made up for the mistake. Like at the end of the day, it was our fault that they dipped into it, right? And if we covered for it, the way I see it, we've covered for our mistake, right?
And I completely agree with you, and I think that's a logical extension to make, but it's not necessarily the extension that has to be made, right? If like us bailing out NIBC doesn't necessitate us having paid PVCC back, right? It's kind of an indirect, and I think we can definitely make that statement, but I don't think that that's universally true, right? Because we didn't know that at the time.
Well, the thing is that any money that we gave back to PVCC would just go back to that joint account.
Yes, and we know that, and it makes sense intuitively and logically, but I'm just saying, like, we have to, like, I don't think we can assert that as, like, a completely undeniable legal fact. I think we just need to kind of level with them, and that's the reality of it. But we can't, I don't think we can go in there and say, like, officially, you can no longer, you shouldn't try and pursue PVCC, right? Yeah, I don't know.
I see what you mean, but I'm just wondering how we could properly articulate it then. Because I completely agree, we can't go in there like heavy-handed. But I'm just saying, how do we say it?
Yeah, I just want to ask, Daphne uploaded this image for the
I mean, you can choose look at I just read this. This was sent to William. Although it was lengthily discussed, like where this was funding from, like why we were funding it, in the email we had sent. Oh no, we do. In the clause we do mention that there's Angela just highlighted it. The fact that this is due to like the reason why extra funding is being requested is because they didn't have complete oversight over operating expense. Once again, adding to the like AJ and Ali's competition, at the time we did not know that this money that was missing was because PVCC owed NIBC exactly NIBC, and we did not know that we had not fulfilled our term of sponsorship 3 years ago. This was later brought up I think 1 month later from Jordan and Vincent and Karen, who are the current co-chairs. I don't know if this changes anything, but now they're the next, like, this is what we sent to NIBC. And I guess reading this, I think we just were not clear enough.
Yeah.
And so you guys are talking about next step.
So before you go, AJ, we're now talking in circles, and we're kind of coming back to the same points over and over again. So I think that it's already 8:45. Let's either come up with an action item or not. But if we're going to, we need to do it now, and we need to kind of hash out what that's going to look like. So that's what I think next step is.
30 seconds. So because we didn't know what the deficit was, how can we be proactive in giving them the funding in terms of saying that, because the fourth item says we're giving you extra funding because of the mistake, or because of the mistake of the UBCFA allocating funds, right? So if we didn't know that 10,000 was what they needed back, yeah, they requested an additional. If they didn't tell us the number, and we didn't know, and now we know, essentially it's safe to assume that of the 20,000, the portion is to cover the mistake. Or am I wrong in assuming that? Like reading the email, the fourth point essentially says that the extra funding was because of the oversight issue in terms of their accounts, right? And that's one of the reasons we approved the funding.
Mhm.
For all we know, it was a $20,000 mistake, and the fourth point is what's taking care of that. The 20,000 just happened to be 9,900, whatever.
I think we should, is there anyone who can add on to this? Because if not, I think we should just wrap the conversation.
So I think we're all clear kind of on where we stand on this. If either of the two parties comes back to us, I think we can put our brains together and come up with a response to it. Thank you, guys. Next discussion item. Where did it go? There it is. Appointment of Vice President of Finance.
Okay, so
And just before we go on again, guys, 2 minutes each.
I'll speak to this because I'm not sure. Yeah, so I'm gonna speak to this. So as you guys know, I distributed a memo to the internal board and also the internal organization. We should actually step down from her role. Unfortunately, she can't let me guys why she did it, but on her behalf, it was due to personal reasons. You guys know Chantal was working full time as a student, as well as working full time at her job. She's looking to graduate, and she had originally stepped into this role, still on the shoes of Andrew, knowing that whoever would step in the role would not be as acquainted in the role as Chantal. So Chantal graciously stepped into the role. Once later found out that it was just too much for her, and so she resigned. But she resigned effectively. And later on, I had a discussion with Matthew, and Matthew said that he was more than happy to step up in her place, and he is looking right now to hire. If he gets appointed by the board of directors, he will be looking to hire 2 AVPFs to kind of make the role easier on this. And as I communicated to you guys in the internal newsletter, internal email, and internal memo, that we are looking and working with both Andrew and Chantal actively into the finance role so that it is more sustainable in the future. So my ask from the board of directors is that you rectify the decision to kind of appoint Matthew Young, the current AVPF, to VPF. And this can only be done if you guys approve it. So unless if you guys have any questions, you can feel free to ask me, but I've also given that chance to you guys during the internal newsletter. And if not, I would ask someone to call a motion and to just approve it. Yeah, you give me a motion.
Motion to approve Matthew Young as the new.
Seconder, AJ, thank you. All those in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. He's not here, but congratulations, Matthew. Discussion item 3, board member onboarding. How are you?
So, do I wait for Jacob or?
Yeah, you can.
If you want, or you could just.
What are we waiting for?
We can just keep going if.
Yeah, keep going.
All right, so I'll start. So I basically wanted to talk about onboarding for the first year reps. I feel like we didn't have any proper onboarding when we joined. We got elected on the 7th of October, and we kind of just went right to the board meeting on the 14th. Unlike the other members of the Commerce Undergraduate Society, we don't have any retreats, so we don't meet the team from past year and the current team. And we're not in the loop of what is happening in the society. And I feel like being a board member, it is really important to know about what is happening, because since your decisions affect what's since your decisions have a direct impact on the society. I feel like onboarding is really important for board members, and we, unlike everyone else, we don't have a proper, we don't start our terms in April. We just have 5.5 months, 6 months in the society. I kind of feel like it's really important to have onboarding for us. And as a result, I believe it is important that we feel included and are kind of the loop of what is happening and enjoying. That is why onboarding is important. And I have like one actionable for this, like make a mandatory US first year rep onboarding before they attend the first board exec meeting, as they so that they know what to expect and stay in the loop. My idea is having a coffee chat within the first 10 days of their appointment with a board member, an exec member, and an HR specialist. Yes, this is one. And I feel like even though unlike the other board members, we don't sign an accountability report back in April, even we want to be evaluated. And I don't know, like, has there been performance evaluations of first year reps before that in April?
No.
No, right? So
I don't think there's ever been performance evaluation.
But yeah, it's a new thing.
yeah, so
That's the term that board members.
Yeah, you do. Anyways, guys, let's finish. Guys, let's let Sanjay finish.
So that's performance evaluation.
Sanjay, keep going. You're good.
Yeah. So we don't sign an accountability report back in April because we're not elected, right? So as a board member, even we would have to be evaluated of our performance, like like as to how we have done in our good 5-6 months here and how we could improve on. And what I suggest is, like, since the president hasn't worked enough with us in the first term, so I suggest that during the end of the year, say February, maybe we should have like a performance evaluation for our term as well. So this is also one thing. And also one thing, I feel like maybe the HR commission could also work on this, because the HR commission right now, they had their first year rep. So first year service council onboarding, wherein the first year committee members, excluding the first year reps, and the first year reps from CCC, CMP, and Imprint, CSA were invited. But we were not even told about this. It kind of felt like, even the position we hold, be it service, exec, or the board, we're first years eventually, and we all want to make this community a better place. So I feel like we could have been invited. And I spoke to the HR specialist involved in organizing this onboarding. I emailed them, and I'm having a chat with them in Jan. And we are working on how we can improve from next year, because I definitely feel like the role of first year rep has always been a topic of discussion as to what their role is since they joined in fall, unlike the other team. And there are certain aspects which will be improved so that we feel more included in the CUS.
Thank you, Sanjay. So you guys have heard some action items that Sanjay put forward. If you guys have any questions, comments, or just would like clarification on them, now's your chance. 2 minutes. Yes, Chris.
Just to give the board your options. One option is to let Sanjay meet with HR. I think this program should be developed and kind of come from HR's perspective to work on. So that's one option. Another, I guess, more intense option is to direct HR commission to create an onboarding procedure for first year reps, first year rep board members that includes accountability report. Then it's a vote that you guys put to it. And it could be direct human resources commission and policy committee to build out, first year. I think it would be more of a HR thing.
Yeah, I do agree with that.
Yeah, so those are your kind of
Thank you, Chris. Anybody else? So I guess the question that I have for you, what would you feel most comfortable with? What would you like to see the most? Would you like this to be kind of are you guys kind of go with the HR commission and you guys kind of figure out what works best for you think for first years and what works best for you guys or first years in the future? Or do you want this to be kind of a board's kind of, overarching strategy decision that we'll direct the HR commission to do this kind of thing? Or do you guys want to kind of work with this yourselves? So basically, the board has the power to say, we could right now have a vote and say, moving forward, it'll be part of the mandate of the HR commission to come up with an onboarding scheme for the 2 first-year committee reps, or not committee reps, sorry, the 2 first-year reps, including accountability reports, performance evaluations, etc. That's one option. Or we could just not have a vote right now, and you guys kind of go forward with the HR, discuss what you guys want to see, and then you can come back to us at a later point with kind of a recommendation of what you guys think the kind of plan should look like. Because then we can vote on something that is an actual plan, is an actual kind of thought out thing, or we could vote on just not nothing now, but we could just vote on an idea and then tell the HR commission to come up with it themselves. That's kind of the 2 things we could go for. I saw your hand, Sam. Do you
Yeah,
still have?
I was just curious to hear Phyllis also.
Yeah.
I do agree with Sanjay in that we were kind of just like thrown into like the board meeting. Some of the topics we talked about, like I understood we were talking about like how the library is too crowded. But for the first half, I think we discussed how efficient executive meetings are, and Sanjay and I hadn't even been to one. So like we were just kind of like sitting there, and then plus like maybe the like parliamentary procedure of it, like there's no like briefing on that. It's just kind of like you learn as you go. I don't really know how.
Yeah, and so point of clarification, I definitely hear where you guys are coming from, and I think like the overarching context is that there isn't a lot of training for board members anyways, not just first year reps, and obviously that's like not a great thing, but it's not just you that have these problems of coming and having to deal with.
Yeah, like, I feel like the first meeting was kind of rough, but like going into this one, like we got all the information about PCC, like we're up to date, so it's just kind of like the timing, or like after a while you kind of get used to it.
I think in addition.
Sorry, Daphne, I did see Sanjay's hand first.
No, raise your hand.
Yeah, so I feel this is really important because like before the reason we ran was because we want to like contribute to the community, and like before prior to joining, I attended Meet CUS, saw the video put up by CUS board and exec, and also the one they had specially made up for the first year rep. So that was like one of the big reasons I ran, and I feel like there are certain things which have been done better, which I feel even Karisa would agree with me on, and yeah, and this is pretty much it. And also for the first board meeting, I feel like we were asked to be inducted into 2 committees, right? If I'm not wrong. And on that very spot, there were 4 committees available: awards and recognition, academic, IT, and Global Fund. Special Global Fund. Yeah. So Karisa and I both opted for the awards and recognition committee, and we gave a 1-minute pitch about why we wanted to be. I hope you remember, and everyone sent it to you like a personal message. And I kind of feel like after we got inducted, I got inducted into awards and recognition, and the academic, I didn't get any mail from the academic committee chair or the awards and recognition committee chair as to what the role of the committee is, which I feel could have been done. Because like I'll tell you what happened. So like once I got into awards and recognition, I looked toward what this committee is all about. I just like search academic committee, awards and recognition committee on Facebook, Nadia, that's it. Like, and I myself like took the initiative and went to the CUS contacted and saw like Christy and Vivian, other chairs. I had no clue like what I have, like, what role I have, and even when I saw the Facebook group, I saw the events which every event has 3 CUS evaluators, right? And all the events up till March already had the 3 CUS evaluators. So I was like, what's the point of me joining the like committee? Like, why did I like give a pitch of 1 minute to join this committee? If there's no induction, if there's no space for me to attend an event, then maybe like as every like if a new event pops up, there may be space available. But I feel like there's no choice for us to like choose an event to attend.
No, and just before we go on, if you're not done, keep going. You got.
So I feel like, so I feel like who's responsible for me, because since all the other exec and board members are like all the other committees have one of the board members or the exec members chairing this, I feel like unlike the awards and recognition one where there's Christy and Vivian, so like who was responsible for telling us like as to what our role is, as to what my role is in this committee?
I hear you. Satnam, do you want to be added to the list?
Just tell me, is Daphne the agent has
If you guys are on the agenda doc, by the way, feel free to just add your name to the bottom of the speakers list just for ease of sake. Okay. Thank you again, Sanjay. We have Daphne.
Yeah, so Sanjay brought up a lot of good points regarding committees, and actually makes my opinions review people that I actually got to talk to the board. Figured you could like you guys we were talking a little bit about like committees, and I think this was one of the not just with regards to first years. I know that for you guys, like Chris mentioned, feels like this for the wild. And I understand that, but I think a lot of the board members also it's kind of like despite adding on to this role, the board role, there's still so much vagueness, and I'm hoping to eliminate that through like having a job description ready for January and requiring that people working on this role are really comfortable with having a lot of autonomy. But with the particular problem with the committees, the only thing that in the past few years, and I also did this, was just have a slide of the board retreat detailing very briefly about what all the committees were about. And I would just like kind of answer questions help you after the meeting because I had been on all the committees. But moving forward, because I won't be here anymore, and well, I won't be here anymore. And in addition, like listening to you guys talk about like the uncertainty of like these committees, I think it's important for the whole organization and like for HR particularly, I would ask them to, unless they're helping kind of drafting some kind of committee onboarding that's more thorough and more detailed, and that require that for all the committees, for all the committees that they would have an introduction meeting for the start of everything, so that the chair can kind of run through like how the meetings will run throughout the year. If for something like buildings user where we don't have much control, that the chair kind of like clarifies reasons why and what to prepare for early on in the year so that everyone feels ready to go. And in addition to this, moving forward, unless specified, like for building users, we are going to, sorry, one last thing, is that we are going to request that all chair roles will be fulfilled by board members instead of. Yeah, so I'm just, this is my immediate feedback to you that things are already in progress with regards to your feedback for your work. I am working.
Respond, add on to, or it's directly to the response. I thought responding to someone that.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I'll give you like 30 seconds.
Something to add on to is using WordPress to publish information about like when chairs are trying to promote this is when chair meeting will happen. That's something
we have an internal site. We can put it on the internal site. That's what
Thank you. So there's a few more speakers on the list, and we all still have 3 discussion items to get through. So before we get to those last 3 speakers, we've heard kind of Sanjay's points, and I think they're very well taken by all of us, and Chris's points as well. So really, like Chris mentioned, there's kind of 2 options we can go forward from here. If we want to see actual concrete action being taken on this kind of thing, which I think we do. So it's up to you. I'm going to look at you 2 guys to kind of decide what you guys think is best for the role. Do you guys want us to do a vote now on moving forward, or?
I don't think we should.
Yeah, I just had that. My point was just going to address that. But
Yeah.
Phoebe has.
Phoebe?
Yeah, I just want to speak on behalf of the awards committee. They have been dealing a lot in basically since you guys have joined the CUS, but also to make a note that there were few events for you guys to attend or participate in because of the feedback from last year. As their VP, I made sure that they had evaluators assigned for like each event months in advance, because the problem last year or years before that was that they would have evaluators go to an event super last minute and it was really disorganized and some events were missed. Like to note, like this text conference was missed and that's a really big event. So to like completely avoid that, as a VP, I made sure that they had all evaluators organized and like had it all set out in a schedule to make sure that mistake wouldn't ever happen again, because that's obviously really favorite to any club or service. But personally, I think if you were proactive and like reached out to them, I don't know if you did, but if you reached out to Christy and Vivian to say like how you're feeling about it, and like maybe if you could go to events more, like they would think of you first as a person to fill that position. If somebody like ended up not being able to make it, I do think they would have made the time to hear you out and tried their best to help you. But unfortunately, regarding you not being able to like go to events to evaluate, I think there wouldn't have been much done with the current infrastructure because the evaluators were assigned so much in advance. But I would like to apologize on their behalf because I anticipate or like think about how you guys would feel, or like any new committee members would feel coming in if the schedule was set so early on. So I would like to apologize for that, and that's something I will let them know to like write down for next year. That if they do have this infrastructure, how can they make sure they accommodate any new members, including.
Thank you, Phoebe. I see AJ.
Yeah, so my, first of all, I think great job bringing up these points, because if this was brought up, like, probably we just get brushed under the rug, because there's a lot more to it. I think at this point, and you kind of touched on this about not voting on something right now, it's a great idea. It requires a lot of moving parts, and I think if we had fully flushed out
proposal.
A proposal of how to move forward, I think that would be a lot more beneficial for us to go on. So what Chris said earlier, I think great points, but we do need to kind of have it fleshed out in terms of how HR sees things and how we can like onboard you guys. Because yeah, you're at a disadvantage when you start in October and you had meetings all summer long. So there is a big kind of like learning curve as well associated with it. So I think the best point of action right now would be to kind of sit down with HR and flesh out the ideas, even with like some of the other execs if you have questions, concerns. Sit or board members and like flush it out and get a full proposal and move on it. I'm more than happy to put it in.
And I see Satnam on the list.
Yeah.
Thank you, AJ.
I just wanted to say, like, both of you brought it really well. So this is coming from a board member. I was a board member last year too, and now an exec. I've been in both of these roles, and I realized that there can be a lot of ambiguity in the board member's role. But then I would really encourage you guys to be, if you think that you're kind of not understanding anything, or if there's something in the board meeting that you don't get, just stop us right there and be like, what does this mean? Or like, if you want to know what does the academic committee do, reach out to me. Or if you want to know what the awards committee does, reach out to Christian if you have any problems. So I would want you guys to be like really proactive and kind of reaching out to us instead of waiting for something to happen and the information to be delivered to you. At the end of the day, like I think like a lot of us are doing this as these are all unpaid positions, and we do it because of I don't know, out of the goodness of our hearts and like whatnot. Like literally like spending hours and hours on COS and not getting paid for this, and these are all student-run positions at the end of the day, and we're not technically hired by not like Daphne was elected at the same time as every other board member. So she also came into the board at the same time as well. So I just think that you have to kind of understand the position that we are all students at the end of the day, and then if you reach out to anyone, then we move in. And yeah, just like communication is key. I think it's I mean, honestly, when I came into the VP role as well, I never had a proper training from my past VP. Like, I don't know how much Evan, Chris, Phoebe, how much formal training they actually got. Like, a lot of this was learning on the job. And like, yeah.
And you've all done a spectacular job of it.
Yeah.
We had an executive treatment, we had a transition, but that was it. And then like we kind of took our own leads and learned on the job and asked around people and reached out to the right people. So I would just encourage for the future, like not just first year, but anywhere, any other position you take in, just reach out to people.
Yeah, just I kind of wanted to second what Sap says about like how a lot of it was learning on the job for us, and by no means are we saying like, oh, we should just swim kind of thing. But just that, like personally, I had no clue how Robert's rules work. So like for the first, I want to say like 3 exec meetings, I was just like not really making motions or not voicing my opinion as much because like I didn't know how the rules work, and I kind of just like would ask Daphne inside, or like I would just ask for clarification through the meeting, and that's kind of how I learned it. I never read the proper rules. I'm still learning about Robert's rules personally. But yeah, feel free to reach out to any of us. I feel like Daphne personally knows the most about Robert's rules, or like Pratt maybe, but yeah, I just want you to know that like I felt this way too, and I still kind of feel this way about Robert's rules, but just so you know, like you're not alone.
Yeah, so I just wanted to say and acknowledge you. I don't know how like fruitful productive this comment is, but I just think that's cool. So yeah,
It's cornucopia.
I think it is really hard to like enter, because even though sure maybe we didn't get a lot of training, like these guys are coming in new to Sauder, new to like, and new to like our whole team as well, and new to the CUS. So it's like that is really challenging, and like I think that like we can definitely like it's really good to hear your guys' feedback. I think now that we know, we can do a better job of supporting you, and I think it is really good to be proactive as well. But yeah, you guys are definitely rocking it. So I know that's really challenging to do.
Very good. Thank you guys for that. Shows that you really care.
Yeah. And then Daphne has the last word on this.
Yeah, so big thing about what that Bill kind of mentioned and what you kind of mentioned about like I was basically elected the same. We were hired by the students, and I want to make it clear. I think a lot of times through my conversations, I'm not saying I'm trying to disclaim like I'm not saying that I'm not going to be here for you, but there's a reason why I'm not the chairperson for the board as well as I'm. In fact, it's because there would be too much power for it. And I'm not in the way that I kind of manage the execs and like portfolio and my personal portfolio, I don't manage the board directly. You guys actually are in charge of keeping me and the VPs accountable. And so in that way, outside of, I guess, our roles, like, I'm more than happy to chat with you guys, mentor you guys, whatever you need that I can put and I can do. But in terms of like our roles in the society, I'm just part of the board. Michael is the man. He is actually the person in charge of all of us. In terms of like organizing, well, not in charge. Don't give it that kind of.
Michael, this is your fault.
Michael, this is all your fault.
PPCC, everything.
And I just wanted to. I never was able to say this or communicate this to you guys properly, and I just realized during the that I never made it clear, and I'm so sorry for that. And I hope that I fail your expectations. I'm not your manager at the end of the day. I'm a colleague for a lot of you board members. Yeah, you guys are in a weird way supposed to. Yeah, not in a weird way. You guys, essentially, your job is to manage and make sure I'm not letting things and not power.
Thank you, Daphne. So that is the last speaker for that discussion item. Carissa and Sanjay, I hope you guys have enough kind of information, like hopefully enough like kind of like idea of what you guys can do next. Feel free to reach out to any of the board or exec members for some help. I believe that Phoebe Wong has a motion that she'd like to put forward.
I mean, I actually can't move it myself, but I'm going to take it.
Have a motion. We have a mover from Simran, and Erwin's here, ladies and gentlemen. He's decided to participate. We have a seconder for the pizza motion.
Oh no!
All those in favor of taking a 10-minute break. I need a vote. Thank you. Any opposed? Sanjay? Sanjay's opposed. Make that noted, please. Any abstentions?
Well, like just
Motion carries. Thank you. We'll reconvene in about 2 minutes.
Okay.
You have to go outside to eat.
Oh,
You can't be in the classroom.
Yeah.
Go outside.
So it's quarter after. You guys have until 25 after to finish your pizza.
Oh, sorry.